Just a quick introduction, by the way, 30 seconds of how the tier list works. The big four means very meta characters in our current day meta. Versatile means that they're really good to using rank and they almost always winning rank if you're really good at these hunters. Rank viable means that these hunters are really good in rank, but sometimes they can also be a hit or miss depending on the survivors too, but you do win the majority of the time. Tie guarantee means that these characters are really easy to use when it comes to tying in a game. More or less it's either A, because of selling, or B, because you have a really good chase. Niche means that these hunters you need to play at a very high level to even get a tie or a win, but it's probably harder to tie as these characters than it is to, you know, win. And they're unreliable more or less. These hunters have too many counters, so too many survivors counting them. Even if you randomly just get a random team, there's ought to be 2 or more survivors that actually counter him. So there we go, that's going to be the tier list. Now then, first and foremost, we're going to go back towards our Ember. Ember is still pretty unreliable, which is a little bit unfortunate too. More or less for Ember, I do think we all know the reason why he's unreliable. He has a Phantom in which he does get pretty early on in towards the game as well, maybe around 30 seconds in while you're chasing after someone, or even if you're not chasing after someone, he does slowly gain those stacks too. However, in all scenario-wise, for the likes of Ember, I think the biggest issue with him really is his bot doesn't move as fast when it comes to catching up towards a survivor. However, if you can really catch up towards a survivor, I also just feel like that might be a little bit too strong, so Naiad definitely isn't willing to really buff him as well. From the side of Ember too, it's the biggest, another big issue with Ember is, you know, when, let's say, when you deploy a Phantom down, whether it's on your dolls or just a normal red puppet Phantom, the biggest issue mainly comes with the fact that if it's on the doll, survivors can kind of get rid of your doll. Right, they can dismantle the doll, and then if they touch the doll just once, it'll be stunned for 2 seconds before they can move again. And it's almost the same as the red puppet. In one sense, red puppet can be countered just by looping across it too. So like that's one of the biggest issue I feel when it comes to red puppet, because like you don't necessarily have to you don't necessarily have to run away from the red puppet. All you do is just start looping it, as in like running in circles with it. Like, because when he launches his attack animation, he is stationary, as in he's gonna look at that one direction instead of turning around towards you. So like realistically speaking, that is quite an unfortunate part from the side of Ember too. Now, not only that, we also have to think about current day meta survivors as well. It's all about that distance pulling, it's all about that support as well, especially after Forward got buffed too with that decoding debuff nerf. So with all that in mind, most of the times it's probably going to be real realistic that Ember will get it down around 3 Cypher machines in. It is still pretty darn obvious that you can't really change targets as Ember as well, in which in one sense it's a tiny bit too hard. I do know that a lot of people would probably prefer to run trump card detention now on Ember instead of insolence and detention, but if you do run trump card and detention, I don't actually think you can change targets compared to, you know, Opera, Ivy, Goatman or Hullabaloo. So like and like in that regards, for hunters who can't really change targets and who can't down survivors fast enough, unreliable really is the way to go, isn't it? But like, yeah, one could say that his chair camp is really strong as well, but I would say the biggest issue when it comes to that is the thing is, right, you could put an Ember on your doll and then throw it down to force the doll to drop down, and then you hit immediately and then the doll hits next. But like realistically speaking, I do feel like most high tier survivors knows how to counter that anyways. And there's some that don't know how to counter it, fair enough. There's some chairs in which it's hard to counter it, which fair enough, but most of the times, by the time you actually got someone on towards a chair, it's either a mercenary or a first officer or a gravekeeper that's going to come in to rescue as well. You can't also forget about Wailing Puppeteer Knight too. So like, realistically speaking, if we're gonna be fully honest with ourselves here, there's just too many good rescuers for Ember to actually get out his full potential. And not only that, if you really do want to get a survivor down fast enough as well, you're gonna have to use those Embers of yours too. Nowadays, survivors are just way too strong, as in like their kind of containability is very high, because they don't necessarily need supports. You have the likes of Meteorologist, Archer, Aeroplanist, Puppeteer, and so on and so forth. So like, I don't even think Ember can actually get his stacks from the stuns as well, since this is not a stun this is not a stun survivor meta. Now, on our next list will be Smiley Face. I'm gonna have to put Smiley Face on niche. I feel like would kind of do him pretty good. Smiley Face is pretty doable in rank. He is also pretty niche as well when it comes to countering certain type of survivors, such as the recent new ones, you know, the likes of Night, Puppeteer could also be considered. Well, maybe not Puppeteer. Puppeteer actually counters Smiley Face, but like mainly Night is what I would probably like to say. Another big reason why Smiley Face is niche is because he does have quite a lot of counter survivors too, as we've talked about before. The perfumer, prisoner, enchantress, prospector, anyone who can tank hits or anyone who can stun a Smiley Face is usually one of the biggest issues at hand. But the good thing about Smiley Face is that he actually counters Night, which is one of the most popularly used survivor in rank currently. But I guess your other issue might actually just be, hey, they can just get one stunner. Like Prisoner being a very popular survivor in rank as well, and you want to chase after Prisoner is still going to be pretty hard, especially when you're going to try mind game with that electrocution too. That one rocket dash might just get cancelled from 1 minute electrocution, and it's going to be a really hard day for you as well. But I guess the nice thing about Smiley Face really is his chair camp, which he does have a chance of getting a double hit. The next thing most likely is, you know, the fact that he slows down the healing speed from survivors, so they can't necessarily come to harass if they really want to, so they have to come in at half health to look for a double down. But in another sense as well, if you think about it, in most maps you basically do know who the hunter is, because when a Smiley Face is on the map, there is going to be his parts down on the ground, and of course with area selection mode 2, more or less you're going to know where the hunter spawns, you're going to know where to run first immediately in case Smiley Face pulls that rocket dash early on in towards the game too. So you can kind of just rotate towards a really nice long window or pallet, just so you can, you know, get rid of that Smiley Face's first rocket and have a nice and easier time when it comes to containment overall. Smiley Face, because the issue is Cypher Rush and basically, you know, in rank it's knowing that it is a Smiley Face that's you know being played out right now, so all survivors can still just rotate at the end of the day. But his perks really is his chair camp potential and ability to change targets as well. However, the more that rocket dashes he fails, the worse it kind of gets, because he doesn't really have unlimited rocket dashes at the end of the day too. You need to pick it up across the map, and of course if a survivor keeps you on one side of the map and you already pick up all the rocket parts on that one side of the map, you're gonna have no items left remaining anyway, so you need to go around and pick it up. So like that is another factor that we need to think about as well. It allows survivors to Cypher Rush while you're looking for your other parts, because you do need to get ready for that endgame shenanigan as well, because a lot of Smiley Faces, from what I know, don't bring detention. I bring detention just because I'm not that good of a Smiley main to, you know, not reach endgame, but most other Smiley Faces probably don't reach endgame if they're good enough. However, Cypher Rush is still a big issue at the end of the day. Next, we are going to have Gamekeeper. Gamekeeper will be rank viable on our tier list, as in the current day meta, he's overall not too bad against quite a lot of survivors, such as, you know, the recent releases of Knight and the recent releases of Archer 2. From the side of Meteorologist, might be a little bit more difficult on that side to say, because I haven't really seen a Gamekeeper hooking a Meteorologist off her clouds just yet. But honestly speaking, with current day, you know, with those distance pulling characters, Aeroplanist, with those like really strong containment characters, Meteorologist and Archer and Acrobat, it just feels like Gamekeeper is the right hunter to go to, especially against team comps like those. Now, of course, early game you only have 2 hooks, which is a little bit unfortunate. You probably would like to have more as well, but as you unlock phase 1, you're able to do a chip damage, in which this basically kind of guarantees the fact that, you know, even when they do get healed, all what happens next is 1 hook and then 1 roll hit and they'll be down anyways, because you already dealt like 75% of their damage anyways, and they only heal 50%. So, you know, from that side of Gamekeeper, that's like a really nice ability to have with his torn hooks. However, once he reaches max presence, he is able to dash around the map here pretty fast as well. So like that kind of just helps you out when you reach, well, if you reach max presence after the first rescue. Most of the time, no, not after first, after the second rescue, most of the times you will reach max presence, right? Why am I saying this? It's because by the time you get someone down, you've presence one, and then when you hook a survivor, that's like 500 presence, and you hit them, that's like 1,500 presence in total. And then you hit the survivor once again that was on chair, that's 2,000, that's another 500 presence 2,000 presents plus your initial 1,000. 3,000 presents, you're already like 500 presents over the max presents. I don't know why we decided to do maths there, but you do kind of get the gist there too. So like most of the times after like the second rescue, you will be at max presents, you'll be able to get the survivor down, and you can find your next target here immediately, in which sometimes, yes, it is definitely quite high guaranteeable, but if you're chasing after the survivor that has been chipped and you manage to land a hook on them instantly, you can definitely get that win as well. I do feel like another one of the reasons why Gamekeeper is rank viable is because you can run him with Warp or Wish Blink. It just depends on what you prefer more. Warp in a sense that you can warp to catch up to a survivor and then hook them, or Blink, you want to hook first and then catch up to a survivor and then blink them down. Rank viable last season was, well, rank viable in season 34 was kind of Warp. Like Warp Hunters, Warp versatility, in which hunters who use Warp has a better chance to win. But for this time, we're going to change it towards rank viable. I probably said that at the start of the video too. But overall, Gamekeeper, not too bad. We also cannot forget about the fact that he does have traps as well, in which it allows him to kind of prevent loops in very strong areas, such as runes in hospital and, you know, certain parts of graveyards in maybe, let's say, church, maybe let's say the church inside Red Church, so the very one at the middle, birdcage in hospital as well, and just some other graveyard areas such as Ever Sleeping Town too. So overall, what I will say for Gamekeeper is pretty much a really nice, decent rank viable character, especially up against current day meta distance pulling survivor characters. Then we will have Ripper. Ripper overall right now is unreliable. I wouldn't really say Ripper is niche. I know last season I put Ripper on niche, but I just feel like the more I look at current day survivors, the worse it kind of does get as well. Ripper is the type of hunter that early game, if you don't have an advantage or if you don't land those hits, you aren't really going to be able to have a good time as well. It's also with the fact that you can absolutely cypher rush him in the most simplest way possible too. Because like if we think about all of the Ripper counters, like you have Puppeteer who's a counter, you have a Meteorologist who's a counter, you have a Knight who's a full-on counter, and then you can move on towards like the maybe versatile survivors such as Acrobat who's a counter, Entomologist a definite counter, Journalist a definite counter, and just so on and so forth. I can name so many more as well. But of course this is only for this season. We do know that Ripper is getting buffed next season as well though, so that's something definitely to look forward to. However, for this season, I think we have to drop him down from niche, especially from the recent newer releases of characters as well, with Archer, with like Knight and Meteorologist. It's just way too much, I feel like, for Ripper to actually go up against. Another reason why I need to put him down in reliable is simply because of the fact that those three survivors that we just talked about are kind of spammed a lot in rank 2, right? So like more or less right now it's kind of just like, hey, you could say Ripper is niche, but also at the same time with the new recent releases of the survivors, I can't really put him up that high, unfortunately speaking. It's a little bit harder for us to actually argue in favor of Ripper being niche right now. With only one single Foggy Blade, if you miss it, that's absolutely horrendous, but if you do land it, at least you're able to use that Fog Blade to actually catch up towards the survivors too. However, most of the times what a survivor will do is to stay close towards your body to, you know, take that normal hit instead. And when you're trying to pull away from the survivors to land that Foggy Blade hit, you're kind of still wasting time as well, because it's not kind of guaranteed that, you know, you'll be able to land a Foggy Blade without getting a hit if the survivors are trying to hug you too. Now, of course, when it comes to good Rippers, yes, it's definitely doable, but it's kind of like saying you gotta be a good Ripper first, and that's probably like 500 games in. But you'll still end up getting Cypher Rush anyways, because even if you get a survivor down fast enough, all they need is a rescuer crouching near you and no presence given. And the other two can just stay out there to decode because you've no map pressure at all. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest issue with Ripper 2. And then next will be Soul Weaver. For me, this season, we're gonna have to move Soul Weaver down to tie guaranteed instead of rank viable. I just feel like for Soul Weaver, like this season, it's kind of hard for her to actually be a little bit more higher than tie guaranteed. Yeah, she is a character that can use triple web stacks to catch up towards the survivor and then blink hit down instantly. but aside from that, there's really nothing much else we can say about. One of the biggest issues why Soul Weaver is actually being moved down by 1 rank is because of the fact that, you know, all survivors now have 3 items, all distance pulling items. If they're not distance pulling items, then they're body blocking items, which does hurt still quite a bit. Because if you think about it, right, there is, like, I'll just name off some characters: Fire Investigator, Aeroplanist, Acrobat, Meteorologist, Patient, Weeping Clown. These are like 5 survivors that we just named off that have 2 or more items. I'd say 80% of them have like 3 items plus, and it's just Fire Investigator that has only 2 items. But like, from Fire Investigator's point of view, all you do is to drop a airbag down to block Soul Weaver's path, and then force her to charge attack hit while you bounce off of your ball. And that's kind of like goodbye, and your triple like web stacks is either gone or almost about to be gone, in which you're kind of being forced to use another one to catch up towards them anyways. So from the side of Soul Weaver, she's in current day meta, she's not the type of hunter that can actually save her web threads in order to catch up towards a survivor, which does make it quite hard for her as well, which is more or less the unfortunate part of Soul Weaver. She does have a spit, however, when it comes to, you know, wanting to get that double spit and then a failed rescue down on towards the survivor, but of course you need to be able to land that spit as well. I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard to land the spit. I say most Soul Weavers will be able to land that spit regardless of how well the survivor wants to dodge, but what I would say is, the main question being, would they rescue the next time? Or well, you probably would have enough web threads, right, to spit twice, but would they rescue the next time is another issue at hand too. Because for most Soul Weavers, like, if we look at the hunters such as Ember, Ripper, Gamekeeper, and Smiley Face that's on our tier list right now, these characters are able to get a survivor down within 30 seconds if they got a hit really early on towards the game. However, for Soul Weaver, it's a whole different scenario, simply because of the fact that she needs to be able to catch up towards the survivor, and when she catches up towards the survivor, she needs to use her web threads too. Soul Weaver has the slowest pallet breaking, slowest window vaulting, and slowest chair time. Maybe not slowest chair time, but the 2 that we just said, pallet and window, she has the 2 slowest of them all. So like, that's kind of a bit of an issue, isn't it? It's mainly because of the fact that she has web threads, in which it basically speeds up all her other interactions. But once again, early game, this kind of just simply means that you do need a 60-second or a blink to actually get a survivor down on time if we're talking about like realistic expectations here. So overall, what I would say is Soul Weaver is definitely a type of tie guarantee survivor. If the survivor wants a rebound cut and the harasser does come in to harass, like, look, realistically speaking, if you're able to target hit the survivor down, and then once tie turn is over, you can just cocoon it. And even if it's a cowboy or an anti-current or a forward that's nearby, well, you know what, there's nothing they can actually do, and you can just force the rescue next time as well. So it's overall not too bad for Soul Weaver, but we will be putting her on tie guarantee. Next will be Geisha. Geisha will be part of rank viable for me. Well, not rank viable, versatile. Geisha will be part of versatile for me, just one step above rank viable. More or less for Geisha, it's kind of the same argument as we have had before too as well, right? Geisha being the one that's actually able to, you know, dash and being able to catch up towards the survivors really fast, being able to clip walls, being able to, basically, if you get a free hit early game, you're definitely going to be able to get another hit within the next 10 seconds if you're definitely good enough. It's not only with that as well from the side of Geisha. What I would say more or less for Geisha is, you know, initially when the game starts, you have 4.73 meters movement speed per second. Meters, yeah, whatever it is. But so like, normal hunter movement speed is 4.64 meters per second. For Geisha, when she is in beauty form, it's 4.73 meters per second. So it just means that she moves faster than the average hunter. And if you stack that up with that 8% hunter's instinct, she definitely moves way too fast as well. So not necessarily speaking, right, but early game, you can potentially just, you know, walk around instead of using a butterfly to catch up towards the survivors. And then when you're close towards survivors and we're playing pallet mind games, you can then bring your butterflies out when you have 3 max stats and you're ready to go and go in for the action for that countering Taikai scenario. However, one of the biggest cons when it comes to playing Geisha is also the fact that this is not necessarily speaking right, but when the survivor catches a butterfly and when you're not at max presence just yet and they have the butterfly, you're not able to use your dashes at all, so that kind of becomes one of the bigger problems too, which is why most of the times I kind of would, you know, urge the Geisha mains to maybe not dash and just walk until you have your beauty form where you walk 4.73 meters per second and you're able to catch up towards survivors fast enough. But of course, I'm not a Geisha main, it's more or less just a theoretical, you know, play that we could potentially do. Geisha, yes, even though she is able to change targets fast, but she still only does have 3 butterflies at the end of the day after all. So like, if we compare her to the likes of Fool's Gold, the likes of Opera, Ivy, Goatman, and Hullabaloo, she definitely isn't on par with them when it comes to target change. However, it is still, you know, something that survivors have to kind of worry about if their teammate contains near them and they're like a weak survivor, such as maybe Explorer, maybe Mechanic, and so on and so forth. But what I would like to say is Geisha's chase is fast. Right, it's not the fastest, but it's definitely above average, and it kind of does get the job done too. You're able to clip walls, which is a bonus. You're able to, you know, Soul Departure up and then Troy Butterfly out, in which allows you to teleport, well, not teleport, but dash out faster. And not only dash, you're able to use Soul Departure as a double hit scenario, not Compash, sorry, pair it up with Blink and then get a double hit scenario, maybe to fail Chair Rescue or just to get a double down. More or less, it's just once Geisha has a early game advantage, she can maintain it if the survivor is rescued, but if the survivors don't, it's really just a cell scenario again. But like, even with the cell scenarios, from what I do know, because of the fact that how fast Geisha can change targets too, I would say, look, if you're not able to get that first containment up fast enough, the second containment might not just be as good, unless I guess we're against meta survivors such as, you know, Puppeteer, such as Meteorologist, such as Archer, just these type of survivors that really counter the Geisha overall. But what I would really like to say is, you know, just Geisha's learning curve is pretty easy. I wouldn't say her learning curve is steep. I would say, like, once you get to know Geisha, you kind of do know the tips and tricks around her most of the times. But when you reach that very high scaling, such as skill ceiling, such as, you know, throwing the butterfly out and timing the drop down on time to get a hit on towards survivors who's coming to the rescue, that might just be a little, well, not a little bit, but a whole lot harder. But of course, it's up to the Geisha main themselves. However, Geisha will still be a part of versatile for me. By the way, it's also because of the fact that it's all distance pulling characters this season too, aside from the Archer that basically full counters Geisha. Next will be Wu-chan. I'm gonna put Wu-chan on niche instead of unreliable because of current day meta. Wu-chan has an umbrella in which you can use to catch up towards a survivor, especially when it comes to distance pulling survivors such as Aeroplanists, blah 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 blah. We're not really gonna go through all of them. But yeah, that's kind of one of the biggest reasons too. I just feel like that teleportation and that soul cipher on the Wu is able to help him catch up towards the survivor if they really do decide to pull away. And not only that as well, well, like all these current day metas where they pull distance too, especially in rank as well, where you can play the target chains as much as you want, and you know, you can try go for the ambush as much as you want because they don't necessarily have communications. I would say Wu is at least bare minimum a part of niche. Right, because like early game, oh, you don't know who the hunter is in area selection mode. You might be the rescue and you're just decoding while the Wu-chan's getting ready to teleport right behind you and then get a very easy first hit on you and then a blink down. Then it just means no survivors have tie turner, so they might just sell you and Wu can aim for the tie as well. But I do feel like it's not only that too, it's more or less just Wu-chan mains do bring insolence quite a lot, right? From what I do know, it's kind of like in one sense it's necessary to bring insolence, but in another sense as well, you don't necessarily have to do so, because like if you're confident enough in your umbrella and your ability, you don't maybe need that often. It's kind of the similar argument with Ivies as well, who don't bring insolence too. However, in our case scenario with this Wu-chan, because of current day characters that can pull distance and, you know, just get away from you really fast, I would say Wu-chan's white guard with that soul cipher and long attack hit range, and, you know, with that teleportation from the from the umbrella, it just helps out quite a lot. Now, of course, I'm not saying you cannot Cypher Rush against the Wu. Yes, you can Cypher Rush against the Wu, which is why we're saying, hey, we're gonna put Wu-Chan on niche, because if you really do want to aim for that win, good luck, good luck, because like realistically speaking, right, if you're able to get the ambush for the first time, I don't think survivors are dumb enough to get the ambush for the second time too. So like, unless you're very lucky on that side note, then I guess, yes, you could definitely go for the win, but it's still a very plausible Cypher Rush scenario up against Wu-Chan. His umbrellas definitely do you good when it comes to pulling in distance between yourself and the survivors, and of course when it comes to the black Wu-Chan as well, you're able to use that bell to cancel one of their items. But you know, from what we've seen from Koa as well, realistically speaking, all what you need to do as an anti-current is to flip in towards Wu, to dodge it, and then get a swipe on, lol. But aside from all that, flywheel is still an issue for Wu-Chan though, I feel. Because I feel like flywheel would be like the major reasons why a lot of the times Wu-Chan's hits will not land, especially with that charge attack hit on the white card as well though. But overall for this season, or for the previous few seasons, still a part of niche from the side of Wu, but definitely does help him quite a bit as well, considering the fact that current day meta is distance pulling survivors. Next will be Joseph. Joseph will be the bane of unreliable. Unfortunately speaking, I generally don't think Joseph is good enough to be niche at all, especially in a rank setting too, when we kind of do know who the hunter is as well. And when it comes to good Joseph main, yes, you're able to get that 5 hit instantly, but most of the times, even with survivors randoms in rank, they'll just assign that rescuer to go towards middle and to give you that, to feed you that Naiad and to feed you the card trick teleportation too. Not only that, it's kind of pretty obvious as well, like for like most of us, right? When it comes to, you know, a random ranked survivor team, and they see a Joseph, they usually start pairing up in groups of 2 or just groups of 3 to finish off one Cypher mission. And like, if you're in groups of 3, you can heal even faster the survivors that's on the ground as well. So like, you're not necessarily speaking going to be able to get that first chair down that fast anyway. And it's not only that too, it's also the fact that you need to get all survivors injured first before anything else, considering the fact that the spawn locations are still pretty random when it comes to area selection mode. It's still like, you know, whether you're able to draw the luck from the straw or not. Now, of course, from a good point, from the point of view of a good Joseph main, yes, you might be able to find the survivors, but like realistically speaking, the only 2 maps that I think are really going to work for Joseph is like the likes of Red Church, the likes of Hospital, and the likes of Factory, in which the map is a little bit smaller and a little bit easier for Jojo to traverse around. Because like, if you're going to be playing Joseph in Chinatown, in Ever Sleeping Town, in like Moonlit River Park, in Leo's Memories, I bid you luck to that, because trying to find a survivor if they're in one of the corners is an absolute trek. Right? And if you're able to find one of those survivors, like, you might say, hey, yes, that's good, but like another big issue is once they do get the rescue, there's like so many pallets or windows for them to use, and you're going to be able to force that blink out of you anyways. So like, he's just way too luck dependent on the side of Jojo too. I just feel like, aside, like, I've seen a lot of Joseph mains wanting to play, you know, him on Ever Sleeping Town, which I would say, you know what, in one sense fair enough, but in the other sense I just don't think it's worth it, especially with a big map like that. So it's kind of the biggest reasons why I play him on like Sacred Hearts Hospital and on Red Church only, right? But that may be just me, and we do see a lot of other Joseph mains playing him on Ever Sleeping 10 as well. But like, it doesn't necessarily speaking, let's say, go well as well, because like, okay, realistically speaking, look, for you as a Joseph main, you're gonna have to fight the harasser mains, you're gonna have to fight the distance pulling mains, in which you don't have like movement speed at all, you've only a blink, and you have to fight against like the rebound kiters, in which, you know, if you get someone down instantly and they have items on their hands where they weren't containing at all, by the time they get rescued, they're definitely going to use those items to rebound kite. So like, you better have that blink ready, but because if you don't, you're going to have that full rebound kite speciality on you. That's like a full mukbang dish of stuns or containments coming in your way. So like, from that point of view as well, from the side of Jojo, yes, even if you do get it down fast enough, that's great, but unless you're cheering that guy in basement or that gal in basement, I don't think you're gonna have an easy time on your hands at all. Or maybe if the survivors are a little bit of a dum-dum, yes, you're able to take advantage of it, but most of the times, it just ain't going to be like that, unfortunately. Now the next on our list will be Mad Eyes. Mad Eyes will also be considered pretty niche in my opinion, but like also at the same time, it's more or less just you gotta play quite a lot of games on that Mad Eyes to actually be good at him. I won't lie to you, right? My personal opinion on a good Mad Eyes main is if they genuinely speaking have the talent for it, or if they are willing to play him for like 1,000 games plus just to be slightly good at him to get that S badge is what I feel. It's because like in rank, right, you don't really see Mad Eyes that often, so like from Survivor's point of view, it's more or less just, hey, we don't see the Mad Eyes that often, so we're not too sure how to counter him, but we have the theoretical solution to him. Like, you can think, oh, this is how we should counter Mad Eyes, but in-game, it might just be a tiny bit more different. Which is why, like, for me, Mad Eyes, probably niche will be a good place to play him. And unreliable, he could also be unreliable too, which is why I'm putting him very low on the side of niche. You don't really see him being played in any of the tourneys. Well, you don't really see any hunters being played in the tourneys other than the big four and just other really versatile hunters in general. However, from the side of Mad Eyes, he does work still pretty well with like distance pulling character, in which if they do decide to like, you know, distance pull away, you can use your wall to block him, but that's only if the survivors did not actually get on the consoles to get rid of your energy stacks. And what I would say there really is, in rank that generally speaking doesn't happen much, so like we could still say Mad Eyes is still okay in current day meta, but still you have, you know, those forward that's gonna come out recently, you're gonna have those archers that's gonna come and harass the heck out of you, there's also the immediologist as well with the pushback, and of course nice being nice. So like at the end of the day, more or less for everyone right now, Mad Eyes, he's not the best character to use, but he definitely is still doable in certain situations as well. He does have that full map control that he has, but aside from the map control, you need to be very good to be able to utilize that map control in order to catch up towards the survivors as well. So like from that point of view, more or less it's really just, hey, I do think some factor depends on the survivors as well, but if you're good enough Mad Eyes main, I guess you can make anything work, but that also applies for any hunter in general too. If you don't get that first down early on towards the Mad Eyes mains, I don't think you're gonna have that much of an easy like mid to end game at all. Even yeah, if you do, yes, can lock the Cypher machine on towards that when you get a survivor on chair. Like most people will just instant rescue just so like they can still rebound kite. Like realistically speaking, any survivor is able to rebound kite against the Mad Eyes. Mad Eyes only has a console to use. Yes, it seems like it isn't a lot, but there genuinely speaking is no way where there's a walking Mad Eyes that can catch up towards the survivors and get like a free hit on them. Even if you do get a free hit, it's most likely going to be the rescuers who's playing pallet mind game, or even not the rescuers, sorry, the decoders are playing pallet mind game. So like, in this day and age, not really the best hunter to use, especially when you need like 1k plus games on that character. Next will be Feaster. Feaster will also be on the side of niche too, but however, I just feel like for Feaster, he's a really good rank character as well. More or less right now for Feaster, the biggest issue with him this season, yeah, you know what, he's always going to be niche, but like I think another reinforcement factor for Feaster is the fact that everyone's like a distance pulling character or a stun character now. For Feaster, who basically needs Patroller to bite onto the survivors and then land a hit on them with a tentacle, and then in a basic attack hit, might just seem impossible sometimes. Because if you think about it, right, you drop down the peeper, you're up against, I don't know, let's say you're up against a aeroplanist, you're up against an aeroplanist, fire investigator, patient, acrobat, just people who can pull distance immediately, right? And like the moment you drop down the peepers, the survivors will know, especially the higher tier you go as well, survivors kind of react just by the sound effects too. So like with that, realistically speaking, by the time you even get the bite on towards the survivor, they're just so far away anyways, and like the time it takes for you to actually catch up, they probably have enough time to cancel those bites just by dropping down pallets, or vaulting windows, or any other interactable, you know, items that they have, such as acrobat's balls, or even just pull distance away, just, you know, like why not? But like more or less for Feaster, it did kind of change my thought of view of Feaster as well, especially after Koa with Mai from the CN amateur team defeating, I'm quite sure, FPXZQ in one of the matches with Feaster in Leo's memories. That was a really memorable game. However, it just, It's still just one game only, and Feaster is still, by technicality, not the best character to use, especially when it's pretty easy to counter his tentacle as well if you just loop around it for a bit too. Not only that, I do feel like his chair cam does come in clutch sometimes, but it's only when you actually unlock those 2 tentacles instead of just one slam hit. More or less, right? Even if you do really get his tentacle slap on towards you while you do the rescue, Feaster won't have enough time to perform his basic attack to get you on a terror shock. But yes, there's a chance for a double down, but there's no chance for a terror shock or for a failed rescue, no matter what happens. Now, it's unless that Feaster hits you like from, you know, I don't know, 20 meters away from the chair, and like he has wither just to slow your movement towards that chair and then drop a tentacle and slap you down, then I guess, you know what, fair enough. But aside from all that, Feaster does not really have the capabilities for a failed rescue scenario, but of course double down scenario is still very plausible. It's similar to, you know, it's similar to quite a lot of the other hunters here as well. Next will be Dreamwitch. Dreamwitch will be a part of Versatile for her tier. I think she's always going to be versatile now. Did I put her on meta last season? Season 34. I'm not too sure. But for Dreamwitch season 36, I do still feel like she's not a bad hunter to using rank. Yes, you don't really see her as much in tourneys anymore, but she is still being used by some players such as ACT, Zunzung, and that's kind of the only one that I can think from my head. But I guess MRC from CN server as well. More or less what I would say is I think it does show that Dreamwitch, even with counters, even with like playing up against counters, there is still a chance for her to tie or even to win a game, because there's just no coordination in high tier ranks when it comes to going up against different survivors too. Now yes, of course, I'm not denying the fact that survivors do have those quick messages that they have, you know, like they've got so much now, such as knowing how far the survivors are, knowing what items they have, they can show that they don't have any items, they can show what traits or talents they have, like, and just so much more as well. But at the end of this day, it is still rank after all. From a Dreamwitch main's point of view, your skill ceiling is still much higher than a, you know, than any hunter's skill ceilings. What I would like to say, maybe we can kind of counter argue that with the fact that Goatman has been introduced as well, but for now what I would say is Dreamwitch is still pretty much versatile. But of course it's also because of the fact that she's been in this game for so long now. I do think, like, for most survivors, everyone does kind of get the gist into how to counter a Dreamwitch, you know, when it comes to the patroller counters such as animation cancels on the bites and so on and so much more. But honestly speaking, right, overall for Dreamwitch, she's a really good tight character as well. Well, she kind of did slightly get downgraded to a tight character because once the survivor has been eliminated, more or less, the deletion progress basically just increases rapidly. Right, so what I would probably say is, like, for most survivors, it's probably pretty easy for them to actually delete once one survivor has been eliminated. But more or less, it's just a really long game when going up against a Dreamwitch as well, if you're playing Survivor. And, like, not much Survivor likes to do that, especially when it comes to, you know, like, oh, baiting the hit, getting the heal, forward leeches on you, accidentally got the hit, but you can't decode anymore because of the Dreamwitch's leech, etc, etc. She just has so much items to use and so much map pressure too. I guess her chase might just be the slight issue, because it does take time for survivors, not survivors, for the hunter themselves to actually get used to, you know, a sandwich scenario in which you need to sandwich the survivor first and then get a hit on them, whether it's a leech or not. But more or less at the end of the day, does she take more games to play compared to Mad Eyes? No. And is she a character that has more, let's say, leeway when it comes to playing around the map? Definitely yes. So Dreamwitch is still going to be a part of Versatile here no matter what. Next will be Axeboy. For Axeboy himself, I think he is quite a nice rank viable character. In my opinion, from Axeboy's point of view, probably from low to mid tier, he's pretty much an easy hunter to learn and to use as well. So, like, if you're willing to pick up a hunter, do pick up Axeboy. I think it's also because of the fact that he doesn't have, well, it's not that he doesn't have any counters or he doesn't have any, like, you know, punishes, but, like, it's usually up in the higher tiers where he actually gets punished by missing a fireball. However, from the side of Axeboy, in between low to mid tier, when you do miss a fireball, you do get that movement speed boost anyway, so you should be able to catch up towards the survivors really fast, or even to land the hit on towards them, since not everyone knows how to rotate properly. But the higher you go, I just feel like the worse it kind of does get, right? From Axeboy's point of view, if you do miss a fireball, survivors are able to locate straight towards the next nearest pallet and then drop the pallet down. There's nothing you can really do as an Axeboy to really tight mind game that one, because, like, realistically speaking, what are you going to do with no fireball left, except for, you know, breaking that pallet as well. For Axeboy, he has a restful roading, which he can use to catch up towards the survivors, if in a straight line, by the way, if he opens his phase 1 of his presence. And of course, when phase 2 has been opened, one survivor leaves a 3-point area, the radius of it, they'll get a 3-second movement debuff, right? And I think they're immune for like 1 second afterwards from the 3-second movement debuff. I'm not quite sure, but they do have like a very short time immunity against it, just in case, you know, you run into the just in case like you run out and then you run back into the area and then back out again, just because you might have misstepped or something. But more or less, one of the cons of this is genuinely the fact that if you plant more than one tree down and the zones kind of collide and merge, that movement debuff will not come in clutch. So I guess for Axeboy mid to endgame, you gotta be kind of careful in your placements with that tree as well, because if you do kind of merge and then the survivor saw, oh wait, there's a merge patch that I can run to without getting movement debuffed, then survivors can use that into their full advantage and just, generally speaking, you know, get away from the area or even rotate to an area even easier without getting a hit or anything. But realistically speaking, the higher you go in rank, the kind of worse it gets for an Axeboy main. Survivors will try mind game you all the time when it comes to their fireballs, and the moment that the fireball is not in their face anymore, they're just running a straight line, and usually they start mind gaming you when you're like so far away anyway. So like survivors are like, I don't really care, I'll just mind game you until this fireball is gone, and then you'll be holding on towards the fireball and be like, am I gonna pull this or not? And when you pull it and you miss, even if you do try to catch up, they're near a pallet anyway, so like there's that too. The nice thing about Axeboy is, generally speaking, his chair camp as well. I don't really see a lot of Axeboys do this in NAEU, maybe I just don't spectate them that much, but for Axeboy's chair camp point of view, you can drop 2 trees nearby and make a restful road patch to gain that speed boost when you're pulling that fireball in, just for a higher chance of a double down scenario or a failed rescue scenario, you know, on your chair camp as well. Now, on that side note, that is one of like the peak contents of Axeboy 2. If you do really have a bad early game, and if it's not a merc that you're going up against, and not you know, like a gravekeeper who can rescue in 0.5 seconds you're going up against, your chair camp most of the times is kind of in your favor too. But then at the end of the day, it just depends on the Axeboy himself. But for me, Axeboy will be rank viable. Then next will be Evil Reptilian. Reptilian will be a part of Versatile here, as well as Dreamwitch alongside with Geisha. I kind of highly value Reptilian here a little bit more than anyone would think. Yes, he does get countered by distance pulling character as well, but it kind of just feels like it's okay too, because he does catch up towards the survivors pretty fast himself as well. For me, in a sense, Ripper is a really good character to use, especially with the fact that when he crashes down, a good Ripper will always make sure to land that crash down too. Most of the time, survivors don't really have much to play around with, and it's always the Ripper that usually has the upper hand too. Now, of course, we're not able to see a Ripper in tourney servers. It's simply because of the fact that you actually do need to play him quite a lot of times, like playing a Dreamwitch, in order for you to actually master him properly. We did see Donex playing Ripper, like, not Ripper, Evil Reptilian like last year, but aside from that, I just don't think you're going to be able to see him in tourney that much often, unless RC Shota decides to come out with it as well. From our side note here too, Reptilian is quite a nice character to use in rank. Not only can he catch up towards survivors that distance pull away from you, it just also feels like his chair camp is very strong as well. He can always almost guarantee a double chair down. A double down scenario when someone's coming in to rescue too. Maybe aside from when it's a gravekeeper or first officer, but everyone else kind of like, and purple tier I guess, but everyone else kind of like, yes, he's not a bad character to use. Now, not only that too, Reptilian works really well in 2-story areas where survivors, you know, that's kind of the places where survivors kites for the longest, aside from, I guess, church, well, not church, aside from like, yeah, maybe church and hospital, but hospital being the main one in our minds right now. He does, I'll be fully honest with you, he does like semi-counter the likes of Knight, he does semi-counter the likes of Archer too, because it is pretty hard for you to actually aim a lizard when he is flying as well at such high speed. So like from our point of view, more or less for Ripper, it's really hard for you to actually aim at him, realistically speaking, if you want to land anything on towards him at all. But for me, let's just say that Evil Reptilian, why do I keep calling him Ripper? Evil Reptilian is a very nice hunter to use once you like start playing him 50 games in. It's also very confusing for the survivors as well, because they can't necessarily look up and see where the hunter actually is jumping towards to. So like from our point of view here, you don't even need to crash and you can just drop down immediately and land that hit on towards the survivor to catch them off guard too. I guess you could say there are certain survivors that does counter Reptilian, such as stun characters like Enchantress and like Flywheel as well in a sense against that crash down. But now that I think about it, you know what, the more that I think about it, the more that I think, you know what, not a lot of people are actually willing to bring Flywheel in rank as much, because it's currently the distance pulling meta as well. But what I would say for Reptilian is very versatile character. He has share cam, that's guaranteed. He also does have very fast catch up, which is guaranteed, so a very fast chase. And his map control is honestly speaking not too bad the moment he reaches endgame. And if he has energies as well, he can infinitely jump around the map just to catch survivors off guard too. So like with all that in sense in our minds, I'm gonna have to put Reptilian up in versatile. Maybe for some people he's going to be rank viable, but like the difference between good Reptilians and good Gamekeeper and Axeboy mains that I've seen just kind of does force me to put him up there and versatile. Of course, people will have different opinions, but do leave yours down in the comments. I'll check them out later. Next on our list will be Bloody Queen. I will have to move Bloody Queen down to rank viable here, in between Gamekeeper and Axeboy. For me, Bloody Queen, honestly speaking, isn't a bad character to use in rank, and she definitely is more than a tie guarantee character. However, it just feels like distance pulling characters nowadays, once a Bloody Queen uses her mirrors, you can't really actually land that mirror hit once the survivor uses their items. So chance, we can name quite a lot here, right? But we'll just say a few: Acrobat, Aeroplanist, Puppeteer. You could potentially even say Night when you're near you, and then Novelist is a big issue as well because he recently got buffed, so his range got increased. Archer is another issue as well because she has her mini keel bow dash back effect, and just so much more. Even like the likes of Journalist can also counter her as well, because for body block scenario, Psychologist needs 3 hits. A prison, well, I guess containers can't really do much, and then all the rescuers counter Bloody Queen, and so on and so forth. So like, it's gonna be a really rare case scenario where the survivor actually uses their items first to stun you, and then you get to use your mirrors to get away from to land a hit on towards them. Now, of course, this will work on the likes of like stun characters such as Prospector, Enchantress, and Antiquarian, but if Antiquarian's way too close towards you, she can just flip in and then disarm you, so you can't really basic attack anymore after that. So like, there's a lot of things that BQ really does have to take into consideration these few seasons as well, which is also why we don't see her that often in tourneys too, aside from the fact that they played her a lot last year in IGL Autumn. I'll be fully honest with you, it's kind of, well, it's kind of expected too, because JP server really loves that Bloody Queen, since JP also loves Enchantress too, I won't lie to you. But like, there's just so many characters that honestly speaking counter Bloody Queen as well. I think around half the survivor pool counters Bloody Queen, if I'm gonna be fully honest with you. So like, there's just so much that a BQ does have to take into consideration. But I guess if you're really good at a Bloody Queen, you definitely would have that map control as well with the mirror. If you get someone on towards the ground, usually a good Bloody Queen is able to throw out the mirror and land an immediate hit onto the survivor who is decoding. And even if they do Flywheel away, they'll still be able to manage to get that hit anyway. So like, realistically speaking, unless you're a really good Bloody Queen on that level, of course you're going to be able to get definitely more than a rank viable and a tie guarantee. But for now, because of the fact that Bloody Queen can hit your walls, because of the fact that Bloody Queen can counter tie kiting, and because of the fact that you're allowed to kind of miss one mirror and then blink someone down to guarantee a tie game, I wouldn't say Bloody Queen is a bad character to use in rank. Next will be Anne. Anne is pretty much tie guarantee character. I will put her a little bit higher in rank viable too, but it just feels more worth it to put her in tie guaranteed. Yes, I do know that a lot of Anne mains now can use warp to catch up towards survivors in order to get them down instead of blink, but I think putting her down in tie guarantee isn't honestly a bad baseline. Now, of course, you can go up to rank viable depending on how well you play, but it just seems like for me in current day meta with like all the new survivors coming out, and this is also based on popular survivors used in rank as well, just doesn't really seem like Anne will have that much of an easy time getting chair camps, if we're going to be fully honest with ourselves, right? And let me just explain myself here real quick. If we think about the recent rescuer buffs, the likes of Gravekeeper, the likes of Puppeteer being a rescuer, and and forward being buffed as well. These three characters kind of do affect Anne quite a lot, especially when they're being played quite a lot in rank 2. Now if you think about it, Gravekeeper being able to kind of just tank one hit and then go in towards the chair to, you know, force himself on the stun and to prevent a double down scenario is a really strong point about Gravekeeper as well. Now not only that, there's also the forward who can mid-kite harass because his decoding debuff got reduced by 5%, which means he can decode faster now, so then like he can take less time on a Cypher Machine instead of take less time on a Cypher Machine and help his survivor to contain instead. And this is especially good when Anne is pulling out her cat when she's stationary and then forward pulls the ball to stun, because during that time the cat will either be A, not separated, or B, running in a straight line, in which by that point Anne can't really do anything early game aside from jumping and then forcing the cat to go into cooldown. But of course she is still a pretty much good character to use in rank because of the fact that if she does land those cats, she's always almost gonna be guaranteed to land that jump. Now of course if you do decide to throw a cat out and then it lands on towards the survivors when they're like a million miles away from you, don't expect that jump to really catch up towards the survivors, right? Don't really expect it that way. Try catch up towards the survivors first, or if you think, hey, I'm gonna need that jump to catch up towards the survivors first and then land the second one, then you know what, fair enough. But don't really think that you can get a jump and a stun on towards the survivors when they're like a million miles away. Realistically speaking, that's not realistic at all, lol. But I guess if you do have warp, yes, that is definitely a guarantee, which is why I kind of do urge a lot of animes to bring warp if they're gonna play against distance pulling characters like Weeping Clown, Aeroplanist, Patient, or even, you know, Journalist, who can kind of just, you know, chill by putting a pallet down and force you to break it instead of you just warping over towards her too. But yeah, she does have the choice. Like her two strong traits are warp and warp and blink. But I would say if I was the hunter, if I was playing Anne, I would almost always bring warp, no matter the scenario. Because it's just because of the fact that it's very similar to the Nightmare argument. Once you warp over, you can immediately dash on towards them to hit them. But I guess when you're playing tight pallet mine games, you might want to make sure that you aim that warp right in between the pallets too, because you don't want them to vault over just about on time when you're about to stun them too. So just keep that in mind as well, please. But not only that, I guess from Anne's point of view as well, like warp's cooldown is just way slower. Once you warp towards the survivors, you can jump on them immediately, stun them, and then either break the pallet and then hit them down. A lot of Anne mains, they can bring whatever they want to bring, but of course they need to bring detention no matter what. You can go instant detention and you can go max pallet breaking detention and or you can go trump card detention. And Anne is a very versatile character when it comes to her persona traits too. So for me, more or less, if you want to play Anne, she's definitely a really good tie guarantee character, but I guess at the end of the day, when you're going up against a full distance pulling character, use warp. If you're going against a stump type character, you might as well use blink. You might as well use blink or use excitement just to have one less headache in your mind, right? Because why run warp if they're just gonna pull you, push you, stun you, and then break your heart, right? But overall, and still very good tie guarantee type of hunter. Next on our tier list will be Sculptor. Sculptor is quite a niche character to use in rank. For me, Sculptor really isn't tie guaranteed in a sense that if they do honest speed the god kite you for like 70 seconds, and they've no rescuers on the team, but they've harassers on the team, and you don't really get that chair camp on correct, you will get Cypher rushed your ass off. And especially with the fact that like currently meta characters are all distance pulling, and whenever you see them in rank, good luck catching up towards them, because even for me, I end up bringing warp more than blink recently, is what I realize as well when I'm playing Sculptor too. Now, not only that, I think it's kind of the manifestation of Meteorologist, Archer, Knight, and Nice, yeah, those three in rank, which kind of makes it a little bit hard for me too. And then you have the oddballs of, you know, Antiquarian and Prospector being a really kind of easy character to harass a Sculptor up against, and there's just so much more that we can talk about too that are distance pulling characters as well. So like for me, what I realized recently is I'm actually bring warp more than I bring blink, surprisingly. Surprisingly, because before I would usually always bring blink. Because you know, it's kind of the safer option to go, because if I do make a mistake, at least I have a blink and 60-second down instantly. However, because of the fact that like most people are kind of distance pulling now, and most teams in rank, especially up against a Sculptor, doesn't like, you might say, hey, you need a rescuer up against a Sculptor no matter what. No, you don't really need a rescuer up against a Sculptor no matter what. Sculptor's chair camp isn't as strong as Bonbons. Sculptor's chair camp isn't also as scary as Bonbons. So like, realistically speaking, I don't necessarily think that like a non like presence one sculptor chair camp, are you like realistically speaking, no one's gonna fail that in the higher tiers. Maybe in the lower tiers and the mid tiers, yes, but the higher tier you go, the worse it kind of does get as well. Very similar argument here to XY. But I guess also at the same time, it could just be like, you know, in low tiers, you always will have a rescuer no matter what. In high tier, it doesn't really matter that much, unless you're like playing up against a Dream Witch, unless you're playing up against like a Bonbon, unless you're playing up against like some form of really strong chair camp character. Now, I'm not saying Sculptor's chair camp isn't strong, but her chair camp is honestly speaking truly strong when she's at max presence. And she's only truly strong when she's at max presence, right? So like she's like a very easily harassable type character. She is also a very easily, I guess tight containment wise not so much, but in a sense that you can pull, if you can pull distance away, that Sculptor ain't catching up to you anytime soon. Right, now the good thing about Gala is, especially in rank 2, it's her chisel. Her chisel allows you to have some decent type of map control when there's someone on chair, which is one thing that I really like about Sculptor, which is why she's definitely niche as well. But I guess the higher rank you go, the more that Survivor realized that, oh, we can actually just decode decode and then move away from the cipher machine when the chisel is on us. Because statue spawn time takes a while, and statue spawn time gives them enough indication of when to move away from the cipher, and they just won't get chipped as well. I might show one of the games where I was playing like up against 4 S-Badge survivors non-stop, and realistically speaking, I had to change to Patroller in order to actually get that chair camp on correctly, simply because of the fact that I was only a Presence 1 character and I was a Prospector rescuing, lol lol lol. But aside from all that, Sculptor really isn't that strong until she opens that max presence of hers as well. On the side of Gala too, realistically speaking, if you're playing the likes of if you're playing the likes of Perfumer or Puppeteer or, you know, Psychologist, your main focus will be dodging the statues and then landing those normal hits. Because if you get the hit from a normal Sculptor, you can't just run away instantly, because Sculptor's charge attack hit normal hit is still pretty long. It's not the longest, it's kind of mediocre, but a little bit above average when it comes to the duration of attack recovery. But I guess at the end of the day, you can't really dodge all statues if they're being placed very like directly towards you as well. So like from the side of Gala, it just depends more or less what your personal take is, or if you're good at sidestepping or not. In a sense, probably what I would say is it's probably easier to sidestep Gala's statue than it is to sidestep a Gamekeeper's hook, because Gamekeeper's hook is just so wonky, and sometimes when Sculptor does put that palette in between, does put that statue in between the palette, you won't necessarily speaking get chipped. Now, when it comes to the window, you definitely will, but I guess it comes with a timing as well, because, you know, like with the statues, you can kind of just stand there and bait that statue out, and then vault over once the statue has collided with the wall. But, yeah, it just depends on the survivor. You know what? It really just depends on the survivors at the end of the day, after all. But for the time being, Sculptor still a quite niche character to use. I can't put her in rank viable or versatile anymore. I have to be honest with ourselves here, but a very niche character to use. Next will be Bonbon. We kind of did skip Bonbon quite a lot as well, but I'm putting Bonbon in Tie Guarantee. I just feel like Bonbon kind of does sit where he belongs as well. In a sense, Bonbon is higher than Sculptor, question mark, is because of the fact that he does land his bombs easier than a Sculptor lands her statues as well. And his bombs does charge out faster than Sculptor's statue too. Like, Sculptor gets one set of statues every 16 seconds, but Bonbon gets like one bomb every 5 seconds, or 6 seconds if I'm not wrong. But whether it's 5 or 6 seconds, he gets 2 bombs in 12 seconds compared to a Gala who gets 2 statues in 16 seconds, right? But I guess you could say Gala's statue is an obstacle, so survivors can't run past it, but also at the same time I could say Bonbon's bombs, kind of, the walls don't matter. Look, the walls don't matter up against the Bonbon's bombs, right? So realistically speaking, Bonbon should have an easier time when it comes to chipping survivors too. Now, yes, there is that kind of, you know, talk about, oh, you need to get the timing right for the chain bombing, which I would say, yes, you do have to get the timing right for chain bomb. But if you're really worried about that at the start of playing Bonbon as well, you could potentially speaking bring peepers, just so you can see over the walls and aim your bombs correctly too. But a good Bonbon will almost always either bring will always almost bring Blink or Warp. I think Warp is more of the traditional way of bonbons recently, especially with distance pulling comps as well, especially with the fact that you want to catch up towards the survivors first with the Warp and then throw your red carpet down to land that chip and then another hit on towards the survivor before they run away. Bonbon does work well with Insolence too, because from the strategy we just said before as well, right? You land the hit, you land the chip, and then you have your remote control bomb ready. You can get that instant chip down with the remote control bomb as well. So like with that in mind, Bonbon doesn't have as much as a harder time to get a survivor down compared to, let's say, you know, Sculptor would be, genuinely speaking, the best comparison there I can honestly speaking give you. However, Bonbon is still very cipher rushable. Bonbon is still very cipher rushable as well. Bonbon is like one of those characters in which, like, honestly to God, realistically speaking, if you don't have a good early game, you're not gonna have a really good mid to end game unless you get that chair camp on correctly. Because like if they do sell, it's always almost a tie guarantee game. Because in a sense that you get someone down early, all they need to do is to get someone to come in to give you Naiad, and the other two outside is basically decoding. And if they're really far away from the chair as well, Bonbon has to run around the map to find his next target, which honestly speaking is quite tiresome as well for a Bonbon main. Now, not only that, it's also the fact that if you think from Bonbon's point of view as well, it's more or less just once they sell a survivor and you need to chase after another survivor, you can't really change targets like an opera or like any hunter in this pool right now, aside from, I guess, Sculptor. So like, you know, once you chase after someone, you need to go after them no matter what, unless you've warp ready and you decide to warp out. But by the time you warp out, do you have enough bombs on your hand to land chips onto our survivors and get them down ASAP? Or do you have confidence that you'll get the survivor down this survivor down fast enough when they have full items on their hand, because they've already sold the character that was on the chair? So like everyone has items anyway, so like are you confident enough in that? Most of the times we are confident, but at the end of the day, if survivors can pull distance away from our bombs, there's nothing that a Bonbon can do at the end of the day too. However, if he does really have a bad early game and then someone does come in to rescue, his chair camp potential is absolutely insane. He's basically the best chair camper in the game, aside from Mad Eyes, but he's basically the best chair camper in the game. Right, he's basically the best chair camper in the game, especially with the fact that like he can deploy multiple red carpet bombs down, he can throw a remote control bomb down on towards the ground first, land a chip on towards the survivors, and then do his red carpet to guarantee a double down scenario. And not only just that as well, up against a Bonbon, you need a rescuer. I don't think you can come in without a rescuer unless it's a stunner who's like a prospector on anti-Clerk who can get rid of your bombs, or like, you know, get rid of your animation of throwing the bomb. But aside from all that, you do need a rescuer up against a guard 26, especially a good guard 26 as well. Don't look at my games and be like, oh no, Bonbon's absolutely trash. I'm not a good Bonbon main, by the way. Go look at the good Bonbons, not look at me, lol. But aside from that, kind of roll back from last stream. Aside from that, Bonbon is definitely a tie guaranteeable type of character. I'm putting him below Anne, by the way. I forgot to say that. Next, we'll have Violinist. Violinist is a little bit hard to say, but I do think even after receiving his... Well, you know what? I guess after receiving his buff, he is niche, in my opinion. Probably put Vio somewhere around... Maybe here? Vio, in a sense, right? I'm not too sure about Southeast Asia or just the Asia community in general, but for Violinist, I feel like he's got a lot of quality of life buffs, don't get me wrong, right? With his second string being faster, with, like, you know, his max presence, Rhapsody, the initial string you can damage survivors to as well, right? But it just feels like, aside from that, it's still pretty hard to land this string as well, and I just think that... Look, realistically speaking, NetEase will not be buffing his range. Well, yeah, his range of not his range, but his wish of his strings land easier on towards the survivors. However, I feel like what probably wouldn't be a bad buff for Violinist is either when he uses his demon notes to throw out those notes, at least make his attack recovery a tiny bit faster, or make the flying speed of those notes a little bit faster, just so then like it's harder for the survivors to actually dodge it, and he can still apply some type of map control on towards the survivors. Cause I just feel like for a Violinist right now, he does have chair camp, right? Which isn't a bad thing for him, but I just feel like his chase isn't enough still. His max presence, you can still dodge it fairly well. Like, well, I guess when you're a day one player or when you're playing this game for like 6 months and then you go up against a violinist maybe like 2 to 3 times a session, which is really rare, but you still end up against him a few times, you start to get the hang of, you know, kiting a Vio, especially with his max presence, those you know, string notes, those string waves coming out, excuse me. So I just feel like from the side of Vio, he definitely has chair camp, don't get me wrong. His chip damage is nice as well, don't get me wrong, but it kind of just feels as still a little bit underwhelming because it's even harder to land than a bloody Queen's Mirrors, right? So for me, I feel like because of the lack of map control from the side of Vio, it would be a pretty nice buff for him if you can at least get his demon nodes travel faster or even his attack recovery faster when he has activated those demon nodes. It's especially good for him as well when he wants to play palette mind games too. So that's kind of more or less just my suggestion on the side of Vio. But like, yeah, he is probably very much still niche to me. Can't really put him on unreliable because they buffed him quite a lot, where he can cancel his strings to go straight into cooldown, where he can, you know, like have chair camp to guarantee a tie sometimes, and you know, with his demon notes he can throw out and to, you know, slow down survivors' decoding and their movement speed and any interactables in general too. So I just feel like from the side of, you know, Vio, not a bad tie hunt, no, well, not a bad niche hunter, wouldn't say tie guarantee, but definitely niche enough for me. Moving on forward, we will have Undead. Undead is unreliable. I know that a lot of people love containing up against it. Well, not containing. I know a lot of people love kiting up against an Undead, but for me, a hunter who can't chair survivors on towards his chair, where survivors can stay on the ground for more than 30 seconds before it reaches half, and for survivors who can kind of self-rescue themselves when they're on the ground after their first rescue, is kind of insane. Because the biggest issue for Undead is he does have his charge strikes, right? 5 charge strikes at the start of the game. You're able to catch up to survivors ASAP to start playing mind games with them. However, within this current day meta, I just don't think it's very viable. You have characters that can tank hits, you have characters that can basically block your skill. Well, I guess unless you're at 50 stack, then they can block your skill. But one of his biggest issue also is that tight containing. For me, in general, I feel like Undead mains do need to bring confined space in certain maps, but also at the same time, it's probably not the best, especially if you want to run trump card attention to on big maps as well. Like a few examples of maps where he needs teleport or from, you know, either warp or peepers change or even just blink change in general is like a big map, right? Let's say Ever Sleeping Town is one of them because of the windows where the windows at the windows, just the windows overall, like, you know, at Graveyard and at the fake school gate. And I would somewhat dare to say Moonlit River Park as well, because some of those windows are absolutely insane to deal with. Like a double window scenario here for Undead is kind of cruel to deal with, especially with the double T-sided window near the North Bridge as well. Just for me, it doesn't really seem too fair for the side of Undead, especially when you can use your item to pull distances away after containing for 30 seconds. Especially with the fact that if you don't have windows, it just takes even longer too. But like for the side of Undead, even if you do have 5 charge strikes early game, and like even if you do get a survivor down fast, there's still gonna be other survivors out there cyphering. Yes, you may be able to change targets, but the big issue being the fact that when you change targets, you may not have charge strike, meaning that you actually need to walk out to look for survivors, so the survivors can kind of prevent themselves from being found first, and then B, they might just be very far away from you in the first place anyway. You could just chase after a survivor. Let's say your map is, let's say you're in a mediocre map, which is, let's say a mediocre map good for Undead. Red Church? Not too many palettes, let's get that one. Let's say you know what, let's say Darkwoods. I'd say Darkwoods isn't a bad map if you just ignore the treehouse in the middle of the map, not the 2-story area, by the way. If you just ignore treehouse, I think that's not a bad map for Undead, because you only need like 2 to 3 charge strikes to go from like the gate to middle, so that's overall okay, and that's like a mid-sized map to me, aside from the fact that it's pretty wide. But like if you think about it, you chase after someone first and then they contain near towards the corner of the map, and all the other survivors are on the other side. When you get a survivor down, not only do you have to walk out to look for the other survivors, in which it includes using a charge strike, meaning that you can't really use any items until you gain those back ASAP, and it's also the fact that sometimes you may not have those 50 stacks of, you know, energy to use to prevent stuns, or maybe you don't want those 50 stacks because you're playing, because like they're just keep putting distance through walls, and then you don't want to use your chop block that much. And when you dash with 50 stacks, you jump up as well, and then you need to wait for yourself to come back down. I just think that's a lot of time wasted too. Not only that, when you're chasing after another survivor on the other side of the map and the survivor you've downed is on the opposite end of the map, it kind of is just really annoying, because not only A, do you have to go and look for the survivor, it's also B, if you don't look for the survivor, the rescuer will heal them. So realistically speaking, for Undead, it's kind of like you have unrealistic expectations where you're expected to get survivors down, like as if it's like water flowing through the river. That's the best analogy I can give you. It's like oh, I got a survivor down within 50, 60 seconds in towards the game. Maybe I can warp out to look for another survivor, but realistically speaking, you're gonna save that warp for like coming back to survivor that was just healed. But not only that, the survivor can stay down on the ground for a really long time. So sometimes you might be chasing after a survivor for a very long time and you forgot that there was a survivor down on the ground. And sometimes when you're chasing another survivor and you got a hit on them but you want to get them down, but the other survivor has already been healed and you warp back, you may not have your dashes anymore to use to catch up to them. Right, so like it's kind of like just a mixed cycle on that, because Undead relies a lot on, you know, you always need to get someone down. You cannot have a scenario where there's 4 survivors up and running mid to end game. That's just not allowed. Early game, fair enough, the game's just started, but mid to end game in a scenario where there's going to be accelerated decoding soon, no, not possible at all. Genuinely speaking, not possible at all from the side of Undead too. So like for Undead, I just feel like as long as the survivors know how to play up against the Undead, you can always reach a 4-man endgame. For me, Undead is pretty reliable on that side too. Is his chase better than Joseph's? Definitely yes. Right, but for me, at least you can chair someone as Joseph, and Joseph has a faster attack recovery animation. But for Undead, a little bit unfortunate. I'm gonna have to put him down there. Next on my list will be Breaking Wheel. I'm gonna put Breaking Wheel on rank viable. I feel like he's not too bad current day meta, especially with distance pulling character, especially with characters that kind of, you know, focuses on body block, characters that focuses on movement, characters that it's kind of a very versatile scenario too. Maybe he should be niche, but for me, he's rank viable. It's kind of like, if you think about current day meta, right? There's so many people around. There's like, oh, meteorologist, archer, there's like a puppeteer, and you know, the recent buffed ones like novelist. Well, maybe for novelist, you shouldn't really be chasing after him as a wheel, so let's forget about him. But like, you know, all the other people, like I don't know who there is anywhere. Actually, acrobat. I think Breaking Wheel is not a bad character because of his Thanos snap. Now that I think about it, maybe it's just me. But I feel like because Breaking Wheel is not meta anymore and not a lot of people are willing to play Breaking Wheel, it doesn't really seem like a lot of survivors know how to kind of dodge his spikes well. That's kind of just how I feel. Because like from the side of Breaking Wheel, realistically speaking, you can just land one spike, change to human form, and then deal damage to them where you unlock your first presence, and then you can get your second spike with extended spikes and then snap them down. But not only that, Breaking Wheel also has potential for a double down scenario if you can like get 2 spikes onto a survivor. But look, even if you do only get 1 spike on the survivor, they're at a scenario where they're like, even if they do get healed, it's 1 spike, 1 hit down. So, or even if you don't want a 1 spike, 1 hit down, you can 3 spike, 1 Thanos snap down. So like, for me, in a sense, for Breaking Wheel with current day meta, especially with, you know, distance pulling meta as well, it's not a bad option. Personally speaking, it's not a bad option. He definitely is a little bit more map dependent too. You can't really play him on like Arms Factory, on like Leo's Memories, on like Sacred Hearts Hospital, and so on and so on. But I just don't think he's that bad, especially with, you know, a lot of the characters that are coming out, you know, like Night, like Night, if you want to first chase Night, it definitely is very doable as well, because you at least have a trap to play mind games with instead of just having one normal attack prediction. So like, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm very wrong here, but for me personally speaking, it just feels like Breaking Wheel is a very nice character to use now in rank, especially in really big maps as well, where you're dealing with the likes of Fighting Investigator, where you're dealing with the likes of, you know, like Puppeteer, and like if you see a lot of current day meta characters inside tourneys too, Breaking Wheel isn't a bad character to play them up against. But once again, I would say for Breaking Wheel to really lose, it's up to the players to flywheel your Talon Snap, it's up to the players to dodge your spikes, it's up to the players to dodge your traps as well. But overall, as a character now, where he's not that popular and not a lot of people remember how to contain him, unless I'm really wrong, I do think he has a lot of map control too. So like, it does make him pretty much really decently rank viable, because if you have a bad early game, it's okay, you can start playing map control mid to end game and start damaging them, and maybe you can find some scenario where you can abnormalize Cypher Machine, right? And you don't have to run detention on Breaking Wheel, realistically speaking, but I do, just because I like it, and just because it's more of a safe haven for me. But overall, for me, Breaking Wheel, rank viable. Next will be Naiad. Naiad here will be a little bit more controversial from my point of view, because my standings on her actually is tie guarantee in a sense. Can I put her on viable rank? Well, definitely yes, I'm going to put her on rank viable. For me, personally speaking, I think Naiad isn't a bad hunter, but I just feel like a lot of the current day meta characters do counter her quite a bit, such as Archer, who has been just released, such as the Knight and the Meteorologist. But overall, if you don't chase, well, I mean, if you don't want to chase after these characters, they'll chase after you, which is the kind of big issue of it all as well at the end of the day. But as I wanted to say as well, overall, probably from the side of Naiad, up against any other hunters, not hunters, survivors, up against any other survivors in the, like in the recent releases, I think you should be fine. She does get full counter still though by distance pulling characters, so we still have to be very careful in how we use our harpoon too. But from my understanding and knowledge is that usually good Naiad mains do use your harpoon to try and make that puddle first, but also at the same time they'll use it in a sense in which they actually use it to catch up towards the survivors too. So like, a lot of times good Naiad mains are either going to be able to make a really good abyss to force you to get out of the area and then take a hit, or maybe they'll create an abyss but without taking the harpoon back. The survivors will use the ability as they still, you know, have their movement speed boost to catch up towards the survivors too. However, I still think on that side, you know, it still depends on the Naiad too, but from low to mid rank, you should be fine. When it comes to ranking with Naiad, she's definitely very rank viable when it comes to low to mid rank too, so there's also that. Now Naiad does have a little bit of cipher control slash map control slash chair cam as well, because of her abyss. When she throws out the harpoon and she makes an abyss within the cipher machine, survivors, yes, they can decode at the cipher machine if they do have flywheel. However, even if they flywheel it, they'll start gaining stacks here once again. And I mean, with that in mind too, when you have like those watermarks on you, your decoding speed gets reduced anyways. So if you step on the marks, your decoding speed gets reduced. If you don't step on a mark, you won't actually be, you know, decoding here at all. So like from the side of Naiad, if you chair at the right chair, you are going to be able to at least somehow cipher pressure here just a tiny bit. Now I'm not saying yes, you can definitely block a cipher machine for a certain period of time, but what I am saying is at least you can, like, you know, slow down the decoding speed by a little bit and give yourself a little bit more time. Now it also has really strong chair cam too on the side that you can create a puddle next to the chair and it lasts for quite a while. I'm quite sure it's like 10 seconds or is it 8 seconds per abyss, but like once you reach max presence too, you're able to gain 50 stacks you're able to gain 50 stacks when survivor are inside your abyss when you initially created. So like, it's not too bad overall. Yes, it does get slowed down with the stacking progress as when you get closer towards the chair. However, by that time, you'll probably have like 2 surging tight dashes in which you can use to land the damage hit onto your survivors and get them down for a double down scenario. This usually works pretty well from mid to low tier once again. In high tier, it's going to be a little bit harder to do when they play, you know, more meta characters and, you know, when they consistently play a rescuer like the mercenary. But it is still probably very doable when it comes to terror shocking and when it comes to a double down scenario, because there's a lot of pressures on the survivor side when it comes to the rescue. Then there will be Wax Artist. For me personally speaking, Wax Artist is a very versatile and easy character to use. So I'm gonna put Wax Artist here a little bit ahead of Dream Witch because of that. Wax Artist is basically your daily FPS type hunter in which he's able to shoot wax towards the survivors, and when he lands wax on towards the survivors, when he reaches to 100, he'll fully stun them and you're gonna hit them during that time too. Wax Artist is the type of hunter that kind of does counter harass type character too, such as, you know, Prospector, Forward, Archer, any likes of the characters that are able to stun you within a very close range or even with a very far range. In a sense, Wax Artist is able to regain control of himself after debuff by 10%, so that just means any debuff stun duration that Wax Artist has will be reduced by 10%. You can stack this with Rage as well for it to be 20%, and next but not least, when the survivor stuns close towards you, they also gain Wax too. This works really well when he opens his second presence as well with a Hot Wax, in which you can just activate Hot Wax, and if you get a pallet stun and they have 75 stacks, they'll just go down immediately there too. So with that in mind, like when you gain enough Wax on towards survivors, you don't even need to play pallet mind games anymore by that point, I'll be fully honest with you, especially when you recover a stun 10% faster than any normal hunter without any extra trait being brought. Now, not only that too, for me, Wax Artist does have Chair Cam too when he opens max presence, but the highlight of his kit really is the fact that with Warp being an ability trait too, you can land like a good 90 stack of Wax on towards survivors, Warp towards survivors, land 2 more Wax on towards survivor to make it 98, hit the survivor, and then they'll have 98 stacks of Wax before you like there's 2 stacks of Wax left before you land that 100 stacks and stun them once again right after attack recovery. It's just basically, you know, a 70-second containment at best, let's say it this way, from the side of when you're playing Wax Artist. Now, of course, yes, Wax Artist does get countered when it comes to not tie kiting, but when it comes to distance trading and corner kiting and corner pulling. However, look, when you bring Warp, I don't think that's going to be a big issue at all at the end of the day. For Wax Artist, you can just bring Instant Detention alongside with Warp if you want to. I know a lot of people who like to bring Trump Card Detention alongside with Warp, which, you know, fair. But Instant Detention also works too if you want that chair camp a little bit earlier on, especially with a double Wax hit down too. You can double Wax hit down as in land 100% Wax on towards survivors and then Hot Wax them and immediately hit them afterwards to get that instant down. So that's also another perk that Wax Artist does have too. I guess the only issue is he probably, like, if you're going up against an Ento or an Anti, you might kind of hurt yourself a little bit because they're just going to keep putting distance, but Warp is really there to help you with that as well. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue here for Wax Artist. Nightmare. For Nightmare, I really want to put him on rank viable. However, I think the right option is to put him in tie guarantee. For me personally speaking, right after the Nightmare buff, being able to move 10% faster when you basically not chasing after anyone, and with that extra 8% stack from Hunter Sing Sings 2, you basically get an 18% movement speed buff when you're not chasing after anyone, so you can just continuously look down and look for the survivor who you want to chase as well. For me, Nightmare is a part of tie guarantee here because the initial fast movement speed boost that he has early game simply just means that regardless of your, you know, a response selection mode, it does take Nightmare a relatively lower time to find the survivor that he actually wants to chase compared to any other hunter. So, like, let's say if we're in Ever Sleeping Town and then the Nightmare spawned in between the North Bridge and First Stop, and the mechanic was spawning by Fourth Stop. Realistically speaking, you can just have Nightmare walking straight towards the Fourth Stop and start looking for mechanic for the initial first chase. Yes, the chase might be a little bit slow, but if you think about Nightmare's kit, if you chase after someone that you really want to chase and you get your dashes on towards them, against a mech, realistically speaking, you can't really contain Lon, especially if it's a Warp or a Blink Nightmare. Warp or Blink Nightmare just makes it so much easier for Nightmare to actually get the survivors down too. So, like, for me, I would say, realistically speaking, Nightmare is definitely a tie guarantee type of character because of that too. Now, for Nightmare, he can dash in between the pallets, and if he gets stunned during one of the dashes, he will get a Revelation Marks, in which if the survivor places down a pallet while he is dashing over it, they will get stunned, they will get hit, regardless of what happens, or, you know, the pallet will be broken and nothing will happen. nothing will happen to the Nightmare. He basically gets one stun notification if he gets stunned by the pallet once. I feel like, I know yes, not a lot of people kind of use this when it comes to playing up against a Nightmare, but also at the same time, when survivors manage to stun a Nightmare, they're not going to try stun you again if you have your dashes ready, so like there's also something there that you can keep in mind too. Now of course, Nightmare's map control has been reduced significantly because of the fact that his cooldown has been increased from 50 seconds to 55 seconds, but his initial early game chase does kind of make it up for him too. Because that initial early game first chase, like that speed from Nightmare is absolutely insane. Because like he does work really well against distance pulling characters like Aeroplanist, like Patient, like Acrobat, where they keep using the items to pull away. But during this time too, you can just look down until you're sure that they use all their items and then start dashing towards them and using your own items. So like realistically speaking, Nightmare does counter distance pulling characters. He has done well in tourneys too, as we've seen before in IGL and IVL. Well, maybe not IVL, but mainly IGL. But hopefully we'll be able to see him a little bit more in co-op. But for now, we'll probably have to wait until the best of fives. Next, we'll move on directly to Clerk. Clerk will be rank viable, but I think I might put Clerk a little bit lower than most people. Oh, actually, no, I'll put Clerk a little bit above Axeboy. So, why is Clerk rank viable? After everyone has been watching well, not IVL, but IDV co-op group stages, MZ's Clerk wasn't really the best when it comes to showcase, but I think Yugakina's Clerk did show us why Clerk is still pretty darn decent, even though it was a 25-minute game. From Clerk's point of view, I'm quite sure you start off with 2 scrolls or 3 scrolls initially when you play early game, when the game starts. I haven't played her in a while, so I'm not too sure, excuse me for that. But aside from that, from the point of view for a Clerk, usually you would be able to at least nullify a pallet or a window just from your own scrolls. What does this mean? This simply means that you can, basically speaking, just walk past a pallet instantly, get that pallet done, and have a scroll ready for yourself to use to drop the pallet up instead of placing it down. This works tremendously as well, by the way, because having 2 survivor scrolls is usually better than having one of your own, aside from the window vaulting one. From Clerk's point of view, what you usually want to do is, if you spawn near a window or usually when you spawn near a window, you would like to vault over the window first, alongside with getting a scroll of yourself vaulting the window. That kind of should be your main priority, because Clerk vaults over windows pretty slow compared to most other hunters, because she has this animation where she needs to sit on towards the window first and then get off the window later on. From Clerk's point of view as well, because you have this item, she moves very fast, as in her base speed is 4.73 meters per second. An average normal hunter movement speed, their base speed, will be 4.63 meters per second. So with that, like slight, I'm quite sure, maybe it's a slight 5% increase, or is it maybe less than 5% increase, but it is still faster than any other hunter. She, genuinely speaking, has an easier time when it comes to catching up to her survivors. Yes, she does not have any items to use when it comes to distance pulling, but her movement base speed kind of does help out quite a bit as well, especially when you stack up that 8% Hunter's Instinct speed boost. That also does help out towards you quite a bit. Now, once again, from the side of Clerk, you shouldn't really play her up against harass teams. And usually in rank, it's harder to play up against harass team. What does this mean? It means that there's less likely of a chance that survivors are going to be able to successfully harass up against you. Body blocking, in one sense, yes, it might be doable, but harass is still a thing that from low to mid tier is kind of hard to do because of the knowledge and skill gap in high tiers. In high tiers, definitely yes, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to do so. You might need to bring Blink, you might need to bring Warp just to catch up towards the survivors, since they're playing like Fight Investigator, Cheerleader, Puppeteer, etc, etc. But usually low to mid tiers, you should be fine when playing Clerk. Clerk is a 3-star hunter, in which she is very hard to learn, definitely yes, but her kit contains quite a lot of stuff in which when you get a survivor down really on early towards the game, you would be able to lock the Cypher Machine, sometimes guarantee the tie, sometimes guarantee the win. From Clerk's point of view, what she is afraid of is harassing, of course, and body blocking. I feel like if you're able to body block for a really long time, the Cypher Machine will always progress really fast as well. And during those body block periods, the survivor you are initially chasing will be able to pull a lot of distance away, in which sometimes Blink might not be best to use. Sometimes maybe Warp is a better option. Not only that as well, from the side of Clerk, you could only just run trump card Detention alongside maybe with Addiction and Rage just to prevent some type of harass potential on the team. But from my point of view, if you're playing Clerk and there's only one harasser on the team, you don't have to bring Excitement. If there's two harassers, like Forward, fair enough, but if there is only one, I don't necessarily think it's necessary. I genuinely don't think it's necessary. From the side of Clerk as well, when you do get harassed, you can lock a Cypher Machine, and this simply just means that there's only one survivor out there decoding. There is one survivor who can't decode because you locked their Cypher Machine, and there's another survivor on the ground, and the last survivor is trying to harass. So like, you could probably play some mind games here and there up against a survivor that is harassing you, but aside from all that, it overall should slow down the decoding progress by quite a lot. As a Clerk main, your main focus is to get a survivor down within the 60-second mark, but if you do get a survivor down within 100 seconds, that's still okay too, because you can still lock Cypher Machines regardless of what happens. I think most of the times, unless you're on like 120, 130 ms, I think maybe 110 ms, it's still doable, but most of the time you're definitely able to get that lock on towards a survivor while they're decoding a Cypher Machine. You just have to be very fast with your hands. You can practice this in customs, but she is definitely still very viable as well when it comes to being in rank. Next will be Hermit. For Hermit himself, I'm going to have to move Hermit down now to maybe the tie guarantee instead of rank viable. I feel like for Hermit, after his recent adjustment, it kind of makes him harder to stop Cypher Machines from being rushed. And what does this mean? Hermit's previous debuff was that his Cypher Machine distribution has been, he slows down Cypher Machine decoding progress from 53% to 50%. Now, in one sense, people would say it's only 3% Kuro. I don't think it matters that much. But accumulatively speaking, it's 9% because it's for each survivor. So if each survivor initially decodes at a 53% decoding debuff, now they decode at a 50% decoding debuff. And what does this mean? Where did I get the 9% from is what most people would ask. It's because it's from 3 other survivors decoding and 1 survivor containing. So that's where we got the 3x3 equals to 9 from. Because their decoding speed is 9% faster, it's faster for them to actually finish the Cypher Machine 2 or even prime it. Not only that as well, when it comes to Hermit, he's more of a double-edged sword in my opinion. Especially in the higher ranks too, where if you know, where you basically know it's a Hermit that you're gonna play up against. Because A, he's gonna have to get those charges up first, and B, when he get those charges up, as in like when he connects the Cypher Machines, he needs to, well, like you're gonna be able to pull away for an extra 1/2 seconds while he's connecting. That's the TLDR of it. And the moment you connect your Cypher Machines, the moment you start to realize, oh, this is actually a Hermit, let me pull my distance and start cutting corners as soon as I can, just so he can't get that easy Miracle Orb landed on towards me. It's also very hard for Hermit to land those long distance Miracle Orbs because it's pretty easy for survivors to dodge them too. Usually what Hermit mains would do is they'd hold on towards their Miracle Orbs instead of actually releasing it instantly, because they know that, okay, they need to play mind games with the survivor and see how the survivor moves. That's why you see a lot of Hermit mains kind of hesitate when it comes to throwing out their Miracle Orbs as well. It is kind of hard in one sense to immediately aim your Miracle Orbs and then get the shootout immediately, because during that time as well, I mean, the Miracle Orb flight time takes quite a while if you think about it. Like, what have they, I think they have sped up the flight time of Batter's Balls before, if I'm not wrong, or maybe I am wrong, they probably didn't. I might be spreading misinformation here, so once again, spoiler, this might not be right, but his Miracle Orbs is still pretty slow. Right, so like in that case scenario, it's kind of like saying it's a bit easier for survivors in a long distance range to dodge. And not only that as well, his mini teleportation himself does take quite a while as well to reach towards the end, and in which survivors usually have easier time to dodge it because it kind of highlights it down on the ground. Right, so like from Hermit's point of view, long distance ability usage, you can still land it. Yes, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that it's pretty hard to do the higher you go when you rank up. The higher you go, you rank up, it is still pretty hard to do. Now, he is definitely tie guaranteed no matter what because of his end game potential, where he's detention. He deals 1 point. How much damage does he do? So he deals like 1.1 damage in total, because when detention is available, they only add like plus 0.5, half of the normal hit. not including Hermit 0.6, but like a normal hit which is 0.5. So in total they deal like 1.1 damage. Right, and when you share out among 2 survivors that are injured, you can still get them down. And it takes quite a while to open a gate, and if you bring claustrophobia as well, even better. The gates are even slower. So like from Hermit's point of view, because of the shared damage is like a double-edged sword, survivors can meet up and heal and body block more damages to prolong containment time while there's another one out there decoding. And then for endgame as well, they can still body block for each other if they're all at full health. It just depends on how they pop open the cipher machine. But not only that too, it could also serve as a real good purpose for Hermit as well when it comes to dealing double damage and getting 2 survivor downs at once. However, we cannot forget that Hermit also has potential chair camp too, in which he can stun the survivors into getting the after half rescue. I know Hermit Mings don't like to bring Hermit Mings, I have never seen them bring Sadus ever once in my life. I haven't seen them bring the fast chair countdown time once ever. I've genuinely speaking never seen it. But we genuinely speaking cannot deny that he does have a semi-washed chair camp, and if you do come in really late to rescue, it will be after half. So like from low to mid tier, that mistake definitely will happen quite a lot. In high tier, not so much, pretty rare, but still having that, you know, chair camp allows him to at least guarantee some wash of a tie. So Hermit for me will be tie guarantee. Then we will have Nightwatch. Nightwatch is very hard for me to say. I'm not willing to put Nightwatch on rank viable, but he is rank viable. Look, very controversial. Everyone's gonna have different opinions on Nightwatch, right? I have not seen him in rank for quite a long time. He will not get any adjustments for quite a long time. However, he is a very, 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 very newbie-friendly hunter to use. So from low to mid tier, if you play Nightwatch, I'd say you have more of a chance of winning than most other hunters here. Why? It's because he's easy to use, and he can always almost guarantee a tie for you. And even if you are on bad pin, you have speed boost, you have dashes, you have slow debuff, and you have a typhoon that pulls survivor back. So more or less, I feel like Nightwatch should be at least rank viable in a sense that he is easier to use compared to all other hunters right now. Anne is also in the equation too of an easy hunter to use, and Wax Artist as well in a sense where you only spew Wax, but Nightwatch is definitely among the top like 3 in my list. Now why is this the case? I can't put Nightwatch any higher after his previous nerfs 2 years ago. I just don't think he can shine as well as any other hunter out there. He does have a slow debuff, yes, but in the current day meta, it's all about distance pulling characters. So from low to mid tier, those survivors might not understand that you actually need to be outside of the Nightwatch's range in order for you to actually contain him when you're playing distance pulling characters such as Fire Investigator, such as, you know, Weeping Clown, such as Cheerleader, etc, etc. However, what I would like to say is low to mid tier, they don't understand this. High tier, they definitely would, so it's a bit harder for you to actually win as a Nightwatch in high tier. But from low to mid tier, definitely very, 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 very rank viable. In high tier, you could still consider him as rank viable because of the distance pulling, since you can pair him up with instant tension alongside with warp, which definitely is not a bad usage too, right? It's more or less as a Nightwatch mate, you kind of have to contemplate in saying how we want to delegate our resources, how we want to, you know, maybe use our resources early to gain stacks in order to use our speed boost or dash to catch up towards survivors, and then basically time management as well, which is another issue at hand, especially when it comes to using warp instead of blink. Now, I'm not saying blink isn't necessary, you can definitely use blink as well. However, I've seen more people using warp because they like to bring instant attention, since they want their max presence as soon as possible. There's a moment you sell up against a Nightwatch and you're only presence 1, you're not going to be able to aim for more than a win, because it's very hard for you to gain stacks. Like when you're at max presence, you're able to get 2 stacks instead of 1, so that means 2 dashes or 2 speed boosts instead of just 1 speed boost. So we can see kind of the general thought of view there from all Nightwatch mains. However, more or less right now, he's tie guarantee in a sense that he's really easy to use, and he's almost always tie guarantee. But like in current day meta, where it's kind of distance pulling, where there's less harass going on, where it's kind of more solo based, I generally do think, right, Nightwatch is pretty darn good in that sense as well. But he's still more of a round 3 hunter. Well, in rank he's definitely good, but like in tourneys he's more of a round 3, round 4 character than, you know, a round 1, round 2, as we all know, honestly. Then we will have Opera Singer. Opera Singer will be a part of the big four no matter what. I feel even after Opera Singer nerf, I feel like it might not be enough. In NAEU, right? So look, listen to me, right? Everyone in NAEU, for those of you who are gonna say Opera probably shouldn't be a part of S tier or meta, that's probably because you're on green pin, or no, sorry, that's probably because you're on meta orange pin, or you're a survivor on green pin like 30 ms, 40 ms, that's playing up against an Opera that's on 90 ms, 100 ms, 120 ms, and 150 ms, etc, etc. She's still up there. I think watching Tori kind of did show that she's still a very strong character. I also do believe that no one probably taught what I just said right there, so we all kind of do universally agree the Opera Singer is on top of the meta no matter what happens. From the side of Opera Singer 2, she hasn't received any buffs or nerfs within the past 3 months. More or less for Opera right now, she's definitely still meta. She's definitely very, very, very round 2 viable as well. Not only that too, from Opera Singer's point of view, distance pulling characters such as current day meta does counter them very, 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 very well too. Usually for a lot of survivors, you should bring 2 Titaners alongside with everyone having knee-jerk reflex to, you know, contain the Opera Singer. But more or less what I would probably like to say is, she's definitely tie guarantee for sure, but in a rank match scenario where you're not in VC with your survivors, it's gonna be very hard for you actually to tie as survivor main. As hunter main, yes, it's definitely very doable. Opera is also very anti-harass. So you can't really harass up against an Opera Singer. Maybe with Archer there is a chance here and there, but with anyone else, no, not doable at all. Like if you want to harass with Batter, okay, you push back against the Opera Singer with your bat and ball, and then she shadow dances back straight towards that remnant where she left behind, where the survivor is downed, and she picks it up immediately. What can Batter do? Nothing. Same with Forward as well. What can Forward do? Nothing. If Forward really wants to pull a ball to stun rescue, he's gonna have to consume a lot of the balls, in which by the time you actually get get close towards the Opera Singer, she can just drop down the survivor instantly because she brought Mischievous. So once again, your harass is nullified. And the current, in one sense, yes, you can maybe try disarm the Opera Singer once or twice, but it's only a 1/2 second disarm because the survivor is nearby near you where she was downed as well. So you gotta be quite far away from the survivors in order for you to land those disarms properly. Not only that too, from Opera Singer's point of view, right, you might not have cipher control, but map control is more than enough of a cipher control where you can keep dashing around the map, forcing survivors to not decode for like a good minute, and then once your teleport is ready, aim for a target, get them down, get them on chair, teleport towards the cipher machine that is currently shaking, and now your rescuer, it has to rescue twice. Not only are they on opposite ends of the map, it's also the fact that it takes so long to get the other survivor towards the cipher machine to start decoding and, you know, cipher rush. So like from Opera Singer's point of view, I'm not gonna say much. She's very strong still. She might receive another nerf maybe next patch where she is going to get another speed debuff or a dash speed debuff, but we will have to see. Next will be Fool's Gold. I think it is unreliable. I'll be fully honest with you, I don't know about Fool's Gold mains in the current day meta. I don't think they're really worth it to go for. Niche, in one sense, yes, but still, I don't think, I think his charge time still takes too long. I also do think that because of the fact that you when you place down your rocks, and when you try to explode it, there's still an animation. It's a little bit annoying from the hunter side, since survivors can instantly react on time to it as well. Not only that too, for Fool's Gold, yes, he can catch up towards survivors really fast, but his mind games in between palettes are just so hard to play around in. I feel like for low to mid tier hunters, when they're learning Fool's Gold, it's very hard to actually for you to play with him. And when you actually win as well as Fool's Gold, it's one of the longest things ever. It's generally speaking one of the longest things ever. The nice thing about Fool's Gold is that when he throws out his axe, he's able to use his basic hit, but his basic hit is basically very short as well, so sometimes when you think it's gonna hit, it's not gonna hit. It's, generally speaking, not gonna hit as well. If the survivors flywheel early and you hit, you're also not gonna hit because you're just out of range 24/7. I think last season I put Fool's Gold on niche, but I think for this season, we can probably, in one sense, guarantee his position in unreliable now. With the current day meta as well, as we said before, distance pulling, puppeteer, knight, and just so many other characters in general, the moment that this Fool's Gold throws out his axe, it's kind of it's kind of probably really easily, you can easily read what the Fool's Gold want to do. The moment he throws out his axe while you're looking behind, you're like, okay, I know what Fool's Gold wants to do. He wants to maybe go and pick up his axe instantly, unless he's able to actually throw his axe to exact accuracy of where you are going, or just barely right in front of you. Then, in one sense, maybe fair enough, he's going to force you to use your items in order to get straight towards the next pallet or window area. But aside from that, I don't think it's going to be very doable as well. Not only that too, when it comes to pallet mind games as well, like, in one sense, some pallet areas where you apply those collision walls on, there's like a small gap where survivors can run into, where they can, if I'm not wrong, kind of dodge the collision areas as well. So there's that too. Not only that as well, you have to apply multiple collisions areas. So like, say for example, if there was a 2 or 3 pallet area, you need to make sure those collision areas are either right exactly where the 2 pallets, where the collision walls are in between the 2 pallets, or you need to make sure that they're actually going in towards that 1 pallet area. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, for example, if you're playing in a 3 pallet area such as Geisha, where there's 3 pallets or 4 pallets or 5 pallets in between each other, good luck to you trying to get a chip onto towards the survivor, because there's so many pallet areas for survivors to go to for each of your axe as you throw on towards the wall. Yes, it's a 6-second cooldown, however, you need to throw it and then you need to retrieve it for it to become a 6-second cooldown. So like, let's just say, giving the benefit of the doubt, it's probably a 10-second cooldown whenever you do so. And when you see them rotating out and they're not running towards your collision walls, it's just so much more harder to do as well. Not only that too, they can most likely use the time where you have already pulled back your pickaxe to vault over a pallet or window, because that animation frame is so long, to the point that even if, like, Fool's Gold, taking his pickaxe back, 1 second, performing a basic attack, probably less than 1 second, but by the time that 1.5 second duration is over, the survivor has already vaulted a window or pallet. It does not take that long for a survivor to vault over a window or pallet. I would say less than 1 second, depending on what survivor you're chasing against. Maybe up against Mechanic and TME, it takes a little bit longer, but usually, or Seer, right? But like, usually any other survivor, it's pretty decently fast. So like, from the side of Fool's Gold, there's a lot of counterplays to him, unless you slow vault, which is one of the rare cases in high tier, but like, realistically speaking, pretty darn hard to do. Now, his chase is fast, but like, getting those mind games correct is pretty hard too. Not only that as well, you need to think about it this way too, right? Survivors are willing to take a chip while they vault over a pallet. They're willing to do it. I'd be willing to do it as well. If I'm able to like nullify one of your Fool's Gold pickaxe for me in order to use my knee-jerk reflex for 5 seconds to get towards my next containment area, it's worse. It's generally speaking worse. Compared to Bomb or Gala, where they have items to chip and to block, or even to get past walls, Fool's Gold is just not the same thing. His chip damage is very restrained, to the point that sometimes you might not actually be able to get that chip damage at all. Especially when it comes to chair camp too. It's hard for Fool's Gold to chair camp because A, he needs to get a survivor, he needs to hit the survivor very far out, and B, he needs to make sure that the chair already has collision walls on, or else it's not worth it as well. Right, because like, usually what Fool's Gold main does is, if they do the basic chair camping, in which they stay near a chair and perform mind games on towards that chair, getting, you know, 2 chips and then an instant hit, then in one sense, fair enough. However, even if you do decide to do that, it'll just be a double down, not a fail rescue, because survivors can rescue really fast, by the way. We cannot forget the animation it takes for the chip damage to come back, for your pickaxe to come back, and the time that it takes for you to perform a basic attack. Now, maybe in one sense that they'll be in animation lock during that chip damage time too, in which, you know what, fair enough. Then in that case, maybe you'll be able to get the down. But in another sense too, I feel like it's very similar to the Weeping Clown and Feaster's Tentacle scenario, in which they probably have enough time to rescue anyways. So the rescue will come true, but it'll be a double down, which is still good for you, but it's still really hard to do. And the second way of playing that chair camp is to hit them very far away and make sure that there is a collision wall near your chair. So when they come into rescue, you can at least throw the pickaxe immediately while you see them rescuing, and then immediately pull it back while you walk back and you're trying to play mind games with the survivors too. However, once again, we cannot forget that it's still very rare for it to work with Fool's Gold, but once again, I guess he's still pretty much unreliable on my list. Next will be Shadow. Shadow is also a part of the Big Four as well, but am I willing to put her past Opera Stinger? No, definitely not. So for Shadow, for Ivy, more or less, I think we all understand, very, 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 very strong mid to end game map control after you eliminate the first survivor. And not only that as well, by the time you got the exit gate open, that does not mean that the game is over there just yet. What a lot of Ivy mains does early game is they leech on towards a survivor, they immediately use the Phantom to Revelationist, so it goes on towards cooldown, and they try maybe to get another, let's say, another 40% stack onto survivors to stun hit them instantly. However, if that does not work, what they will usually do is pair it up with blink, so they'll blink hit the survivor down once their hunt movement speed was just ready, and during that time frame too, by the time your blink is actually ready too, right, you'll be able to reach on towards the survivor, teleport on towards them, and then Revelation once again for the 100 stack, and just to get that instant down to within 70-80 second mark. In another sense as well, from Ivy's side, even if you do get it down in 70 seconds, it's still good because you can bring out your Phantom to immediately, let's say, to immediately start locking cipher machines. And not only that, you can do that immediately right after you use your first revelation on towards the survivor. So you can just like go out map control, and during that map control time, you can slowly but surely chase up towards the survivor that you were initially chasing, blink them, take your revelation back, take your ETM back, and then leech on towards them, and then get 100 stacks, get them down instantly. So like the cipher machine will be really slow early game too. Not only that as well, the Ostracons are immune for 20 seconds when they initially kind of spawn in, and it takes a total of 5 seconds to dismantle. So quite a lot of time wasted in general as well, and quite a lot of map controls because of that too. Not only that, Ivy also has a chair count potential. Yes, it is a little bit harder to play the chair count potential, but because of the fact that you're able to drop down an Ostracon near the chair, this means that you or the survivor that is on the chair cannot rebound kite, because they're going to be able to get at least like 20 stacks of revelation. Then by the time they get 20 stacks of revelation, you yourself as an Ivy will reach on towards them to force them to further gain stacks. If you are max presence, you can teleport towards the Ostracon and then force an extra 40 stacks and a revelation them down. So not only is it very hard to rebound kite up against an Ivy, it is also very hard to harass against an Ivy too. For an Ivy, you can prevent forward from harassing. You can basically prevent any harasser from harassing, because when you pick up the blue, you can use your revelation either from the Phantom or from your main body. Yes, you can use your ability when you're picking up a survivor. Apparently that's a thing on Shadow. So like, she counters harass very well, simply because of the fact that survivors cannot look back while they contain. So like, that's a big issue too. So she counters like all harass type characters, including Seer as well. So like, from Ivy's point of view, it's basically all about your solo chase and your solo containment. If you're not able to do well, you are absolutely cooked. But even from the survivor side, even if you do well and is able to at least block a few maybe revelations, it's still pretty hard for you to really get a win game, because Ivy's endgame is so strong. You're able to put your Phantom near one gauge and then put your main body at the other gauge, and once you put the Phantom down, you can leech onto a survivor, Ostracon them, teleport over, while you can maybe bring back your leech and then teleport over and then get a blink down to guarantee the 1-man elimination, and then leech onto towards a survivor once again while you're mid-chair animationing, so they're forced to get away from the exit gauge, meaning that they cannot do much anymore. So like, from survivor's point of view, it's really hard to play up against Ivy, especially in rank as well. She basically works in any tier. She's also one of the permaban hunters right now in rank. That's alongside with Goatman and Hullabaloo, but she's definitely part of the big four. Then you will have Goatman. Goatman is definitely on top of the big four as well. I feel like Goatman works on any map. Since we didn't really make a tier list last season for hunters, Goatman in a nutshell is able to drop down cages and confine you within one certain area. This is very similar to Ripper back in the day. However, for Goatman, he's able to teleport around the cage's edges and to force survivors to kind of play mind games. Not only that, when survivors are within those cages, their interaction speed I think is reduced by 10 to 20%. I'm not sure the exact range, but they're basically all interactions rates such as decoding, vaulting, dropping down pallets, etc., has been significantly reduced too. So like, you can drop down a 9-meter radius cage, you can drop down a 12-meter and another 15-meter radius cage in total. So those are 3 options for you. Not only that as well, because of the fact that you can do that, you're able to basically have really strong map control. It's kind of like Opera Singer, but a bit easier and a bit faster for you to get from one place to another. Goatman is also a character that is able to shop around the map, meaning that even if he doesn't find a survivor immediately early game, he can walk around the map, gain 100 stacks of resentment, and immediately start next chase. Per each cage, you use 40 stacks of resentment, and if you want to reuse that cage within 3 seconds, it costs 19 stacks of resentment. This simply just means that if you missed one cage by accident, that's no problem at all. You can use another one immediately to land the hit onto a survivor to deal a to deal a normal attack. But we cannot forget for Goatman, if you don't use your cages to deal damage onto a survivor, it's going to be a chip damage. So we have to keep that in mind, okay? We generally speaking have to keep that in mind. So like the cages are very important when it comes to chases as well. So you need to make sure that you have enough resentment stacks on your hands to use in order to use those cages. But let us talk about the different ways that you can actually use Goatman. You can use your cages to A, block their route, whatever direction they were walking towards you, because you can't break the cages from outside, only inside. And not only that as well, right after you block their route, you can place down another cage that only costs 19 stacks instead of 40 stacks and get the instant hit on towards them. That's one way of playing it. The other way of playing Goatman is if you're at the edge of the map, you can force the survivor to teleport towards the other side of the walls, in which they cannot reuse the gauge teleportation to kind of dodge away from you. So you either A, force the items, or B, force them to take a hit. That's another way to play it. C, another way to play Goatman is if they're playing pallet mind games around you, you can basically throw down a cage towards the basically to make sure that the edge of the cage is at the pallet, so it's kind of intertwining. So then the survivors can't really vault over the pallet, and then you can yourself teleport over straight towards that pallet and hit the survivor because it's not interactable and it acts as a wall. That's the third way of playing Goatman. Fourth way of playing Goatman is that you can use double cages. You can use your back step, double cage down, and then catch up towards the survivor instantly and hit them down. Backstep basically moves faster than normal movement in general, right? So like you can use backstep to catch up towards the survivor really fast too, and usually they wouldn't have enough time to react on time because teleportation is really fast on the side of Goatman too, so we cannot forget about that as well. But in a scenario like rank matches, it's still pretty hard to contain a Goatman because it's also very, 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 very confusing in which direction he is genuinely going in general. I guess you can also say it goes from both sides as well. The Goatman can also get confused too, but more or less, the Goatman usually has more advantage point over the survivors as well. Goatman can also chair camp up against a survivor too. They can go out towards a survivor that is coming to rescue, place down a cage to block their way in, and then place down another one to force the hit. And during that time, after you hit the survivor, since you're very far away from the chair, it takes the survivor way longer to actually get rid of the cage compared to when you're actually near the chair, and it only takes like 0.5/1 seconds to get rid of the cage. So with that in mind, right, Goatman has chair camp if he's able to do so. Well, let's talk about chair camp again, right? If you have a lot of resentment stacks, you can continuously place down cages and force the survivor to break the cage before they get on towards the chair as well. Because like you can be in the same area as the survivor within the cages too. Let's not forget about that. And you can just force the survivors to continuously break cages and to waste more time. Not only that as well, if a survivor makes a mistake of when you place in a cage and they run past it, you can immediately break the cage, and then they're on the opposite side of the end of the map. They can't really reach towards the chair on time as well. So like Goatman just has so many things that he can use, right? Early game, mid game, end game, just so much potential on him, which is why he's definitely very, very, very high on the big four. Next will be Hullabaloo. Hullabaloo more or less is a part of the big four. He is very, 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 very strong, and I don't really think that we have to explain too much, but we can go through everything about Hullabaloo that is really annoying about him. Let's first talk first and foremost. His attack recovery is very fast. However, you need to stack 3 items on towards a survivor before you actually get a hit on towards them. But we cannot forget about his abilities too. For Hullabaloo, he has double surprise, in which there are quite a lot of big components around this. Number one is he can locate survivors that are within your nearby vicinity. Simply just means that early game, if you can't find a survivor that is around the area, or if you want to locate a survivor instantly but they're hiding, you can use your double surprise and it points directly at the location of where the survivor is exactly hiding, or the direction that they are currently running in. So that's point number one. Point number two, Hullabaloo is able to hit past walls if you have your double surprise nearby. This simply means that if your clone has white mark on the survivor and you have a red mark on towards the survivor, if you land the hit past the pallet or past the window, the 2 marks will land instantly. And this simply just means that even if they do want to try pallet camp, there is nothing that they can do about it, because they will instantly get, they will instantly stack 2 stacks and they'll get an immediate hit right afterwards, so right after you spin. So like there is also that. Not only that too, from the side of your double surprise as well, the cooldown is very slow and you're able to use it twice. So like even if you're really far away from the survivor, as long as you land those twice, after 12 seconds, you're going to be able to land the hit instantly on towards the survivor once again. So how scary is that really? And you can cancel it immediately as well. It just doesn't stay, you can cancel it immediately. Compared to Bloody Queen, whose mirrors, still you cannot cancel at all, unfortunately speaking. Not only that too, remember when we said that, oh, if you can't catch up towards the survivor, Hullabaloo's base speed is 5.28 meter per second. So his base speed is like 80% faster. I'm quite sure that most, well, maybe not 80% faster, but like normal hunter is 4.64. He is 5.28. His base speed is really fast. So even if the survivor wants to rotate out, they're gonna have to take quite a. It's gonna be really hard for them to actually rotate in general after all too. And Hullabaloo as well is immune to harass, because if he is in his red zone, survivors cannot use their items at all, unless, well, they're able to activate it within 0.3 seconds, but they're still unable to use their items. That is more or less the case almost every single time. Because like realistically speaking, 0.3 seconds you might be able to get a flywheel off on time, but like as long as Hullabaloo just waits around that area or force you on the edge of his zone, there's kind of, it's kind of pretty hard. He will force you to either A, use your items early, or B, make you try to play mind games. But usually Hullabaloos will wait until your full items actually locked before they actually hit you with either A, you hit normal attack, or B, the double surprise. So that just means there's no chance for flywheel. There's actually no chance for flywheel. Even though Hullabaloo does need 3 stacks on towards the survivor, let's not forget that he has trapezes on his hands to use. Yes, Mercenary, Forward, maybe not Forward because he gets some, but Mercenary, Explorer, Gravekeeper does counter Hullabaloo when it comes to chair rescuing, because they can immediately dash in towards the chair and perform a no damage rescue. But we can't forget that Hullabaloo can still make a double down, especially when he has double surprise for chair camp. And not only that too, we cannot forget that he has trapezes on his hands to use. So like right after the survivor gets a rescue, Hullabaloo can just target the survivor that was initially on the the one that's coming into rescue, right? And since they're one coming to rescue, you can hit them twice, and even with double surprise land more stacks on towards the rescuer. And even if your survivor that's on chair has rotated out, you have quite a lot of trapezes on your hands to use, in which you're able to dash for like quite a bit of a distance before you catch up. Like sometimes you only need 2 trapezes to catch up towards the survivor, and then like they're still in tight turn time anyway, so like you don't really care. You're gonna wait for your next double surprise within the next 12 seconds anyways, and land those 3 hits instantly. And not only that too, you move very fast, so you don't really care. They're not gonna be able to, you know, run away from you. And even if they do run away from you, they can't hide because you have a double surprise. I mean, you can locate them instantly with it, so like there is also that too. So it's really annoying from the side of survivors to go up against a, you know, a Hullabaloo. Not only that too, you cannot corner kite. I know a lot of people are like, oh, corner kiting is a thing now. You can't corner kite up against Hullabaloo at all. As long as he throws down those double surprises at the corner, there is nothing you can do about it. There is, genuinely speaking, nothing you can do about it. He can also spin his, you know, little pallet underneath him every like 20 seconds if I'm not wrong. I mean, you might be able to buy 20 seconds, but that's about it. That's about it. Because like before we were like, oh, he doesn't have chair camp. Realistically speaking, he does have chair camp. He can still damage the rescuer that's coming to rescue, even if he does perform a no damage rescue. But once again, oh well, he's a strong hunter for a reason. We're going to be able to see his nerf next season, thankfully, but more or less for this season, he's definitely a part of the big 4. However, that'll be the end of the tier list for season 36. Let's not forget that the adjustments are coming in tomorrow as well. So they're coming online tomorrow. Let's not forget about the update tomorrow too. But more or less, this will be season 36 hunter meta. I'm quite glad that there's actually quite a nice, you know, balance between every tier. There's not one that is oversaturated. There's also not one that is undersaturated. So that's going to be it for season 36 tier list. Once again, thank you for watching. Hopefully you have a good day, good night, and I will see you sugar buns for maybe season 36 survivor tier list, depending on how fast I can actually get it done before next season. But of course, once again, if you do have any of your own opinions, do drop it down in the comments below. I usually read those, so I change my opinions based on some certain points maybe I've missed. But overall, that's gonna be it for me for now. Peace.